base of the end of the world starting with 5 million points. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Establishing a School. After thinking hard, Luo Ren's eyes lit up. By the way, we have to let them study. Of course, the content of the current education will naturally not be the kind of theories that are basically useless before the end of the world, but to train them to become talents useful to the base, such as aquaculture, livestock breeding, agricultural planting, and construction. All talents can do it. Read by the way, there is another one, that is ideological education. It is said that correct thoughts must be cultivated from an early stage age. If you want them to be loyal to the base, you must naturally cultivate their thoughts in this regard. With such thoughts in his mind, Luo Ren became active. He stood up, glanced across the inner city, and saw an open space, which was an old parking lot, and a school could be built there. While Luo Ren was thinking about it, Su and Tang seemed to have a tacit understanding. Seeing those young girls whose youthful and childish faces had not faded, she also thought, they are too young to join the militia. If there is a school, they can. How great it would be to sit in class and learn useful knowledge, and to form a Boy Scout troop and develop military skills from an early age. Luo Ren was preoccupied with building the school and lost interest in the militia. He quickly came to the Parliament Hall and ordered people to call Shashap, Komu, Komar, and the supervisors of various aspects. Around the long table, Luo Ren sat at the head seat, his eyes slightly dosed, waiting for the arrival of others. After about 10 minutes, the supervisors from all aspects finally arrived. These supervisors were all nervous when they saw that the chief had arrived a long time ago. They didn't understand why the chief suddenly summoned them. Some of them had wild ideas, thinking that Luo Ren was going to carry out a major blood exchange, so they were extremely worried. Luo Ren slowly opened his eyes and glanced at everyone on the field. There were no more than a few supervisors. It seemed that everyone had arrived. Whether it was Shashap, Komu, hospital director Yuan Yangyuan, or nursing supervisor Meng Xinrang who had become Yuan Yangyuan's wife, they all looked at Luo Ren in awe, waiting for him to speak out the reason and purpose of summoning them. Luo Ren said, "Is this our second gathering?" Saudi Arabia was the most senior person among all the supervisors, so it was natural for him to answer, "Yes, I remember the first meeting, where the chief assigned tasks to the supervisors." Hehe, yes. Luo Ren said with a smile. The supervisors also laughed and agreed, and then there was silence. Creak. After about a few minutes, the door of the conference room was pushed open again, and then Luo Shan walked in. Luo Ren saw Luo Shan and smiled. Finally everyone is here. Luo Shan first said to Luo Ren, "Sir, I'm late." Luo Ren waved his hand. "It doesn't matter." Luo Shan said apologetically to the supervisors, "I'm sorry everyone, there are some things in the army. I'm late. Everyone has been waiting for a long time." None of the officers blamed him, and the supervisors naturally didn't dare to express dissatisfaction. They all smiled and said, it's okay, we haven't been here long." "Yeah, wait a minute, I just arrived a while ago." Luo Shan sat down, and the conference hall became quiet again. Everyone was already here. Luo Ren didn't waste any time. Under the gaze of many supervisors, he said, "The theme of today's meeting is school." Hearing this, the supervisors who thought Luo Ren was about to make a big change suddenly calmed down. At the same time, they were curious. "Sir, is this intentional about building learning? But what does the school have to pay?" Luo Ren continued, "Everyone knows the rules of the base. Those who are over 12 years old, but under 15 years old have their working time halved, while those under 12 years old do not have to work, so they spend most of their time doing nothing. I don't know what to do every day. Maybe some people are taken by their parents and elders to help on farms, pastures, or construction sites, and they can also learn some skills such as planting, breeding, and construction, but those are a small number. So I thought about it and decided to build her in schools. The content of education is the skills that the base needs most at the moment. Of course, cultural classes are still required, such as reading and literacy. After all, we cannot let the base become a primitive society where people cannot read or write. By the way, there is also mathematics. This does not need to be too advanced. It is enough. Of course, for children who are talented in that area, we can also build a library in the city to collect various books for them to learn by themselves. Of course, there is also the most important course, which is the basis history and ideological education. At this point, Luo Ren's tone suddenly became serious. The base is to protect everyone's safety, so everyone is responsible for the stability of the base. I don't want to see trays appear in the base. All the supervisors were awesome struck when they heard this. Some of they may have their own little thoughts, but they are all insignificant things, but they are always determined in their hearts, and will never betray the base. They will never betray the base. It's a matter for your lord, sir. Seeing everyone's expressions of satisfied, Luo Ren nodded secretly, and continued, by the way, there are also military skills. The security of the base is currently guarded by the guards, but the residents of the base still need to have certain military skills. After all, in the end of the world, no one knows how serious the danger will be in the next second, so we must be fully prepared. In Luo Ren's mind, he still hasn't thought about recruiting soldiers from the residents, at least not yet. Maybe in the future, when the base reaches a certain scale and has to use conscription to obtain soldiers, Luo Ren will let go of this policy. The reason why he decided to cultivate the military skills of school students was because he saw the ability of quasi level 2 evolved zombies to summon other zombies in the Ghibli parking lot. If one day, level 2 evolved zombies summon a large number of zombies to attack the base, then when there are not enough guards, or the production speed cannot keep up with consumption, these residents with military skills can directly guard the base with guns. This point is similar to that when the enemy engulfs attacks, all the residents gather together to attack. The supervisors nodded one after another, obviously agreeing with Luo Ren's words. This is my basic plan for the school. Then, next, I will roughly arrange your work. Luo Ren first looked at the construction director Komu and said, the school is an important building, so it must be built in the inner city. I have already thought about the suitable site for the old parking lot. As for the style of the school, I will leave it to you, if you are a professional. Also, after the school is established, you will arrange for professionals to teach the construction courses. Komu responded, yes, sir. Luo Ren then looked at Yuan Yangguan and Meng Xinrong, two guys who didn't know when they got together, and said, Yuan Yangguan and Meng Xinrong, you two are responsible for arranging teachers for nursing and medical classes. Medicine is difficult and cannot be learned in a short time, but doctors are in relatively short supply at the base. So once someone with medical talent is discovered in class, they will be allowed to study medicine, and they will not need to study other skills. Yuan Yangguan quietly firmly and agreed with Luo Ren's arrangement. In this way, Luo Ren assigned the tasks of arranging teachers to each supervisor, and then asked Sordi to implement them. Chapter 77 Tank Test. In late autumn, the temperature drops sharply, especially in the south. Yesterday it was still sunny and very warm. But today Luo Ren went out early in the morning and saw that the leaves, grass, and roof tiles were all covered with a thin layer of the white frost is blown by a gust of wind, and you can feel the coldness contained in it. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Luo Ren went straight to the military zone and saw at first sight 9 tanks and 20 armored troop carriers parked in front of the tank factory. Calling the escort to park the armored troop carrier in the parking lot, and then calling the 36 tank crews from before, Luo Ren said to them, each group of you choose a tank by yourself. At the same time, Luo Ren once again chose to produce 20 tanks to prepare for emergencies. After the tank selection was completed, 3 teams and 9 groups drove the tanks in order. Their movements were skillful and the speed was so fast. It didn't look like they were driving tanks for the first time. They were clearly 36 experienced drivers. Looking at the 9 steel beasts, Luo Ren was extremely excited and immediately ordered, go out of the city and try. 9 tanks lined up in an orderly manner and headed out of the city, and Luo Ren drove his car to follow. The tanks swaggered through the city, and the residents were stunned when they saw it. One of them said, hey, man, this is a tank, right? That's right buddy, it's a tank. Oh my god, it's really a tank. Sir, you really shocked me again. Yes, you said that sir is really a human being. What do you mean? Are you calling the sir a human being? Oh. Why are you slandering me again? Is it what I mean? I mean, sir, you are beyond my knowledge, just like a god. The exclamations and comments in his ears continued one after another, which made Luo Ren's mouth curve slightly. The tank team drove to the city gate, and the city gate was wide open. After all 9 tanks drove to the open space outside the city, Luo Ren just drove his car to follow. At the same time, the onlookers followed and crowded the city wall. Of course, luckily there were escorts to maintain order, otherwise a few people might have fallen off the city wall due to the crowds. While the 9 tanks were lined up neatly, they saw a team of dozens of people returning from abroad. Luo Ren took a closer look and saw that the leader was Suan Tong, who turned out to be the only militia team in the base. Suan Tong and the 50 militiamen also saw the tank. Their walking movements froze, their eyes widened, and their mouths opened, so wide that they could easily swallow a whole egg. Suan Tong was the first to recover. She also saw Luo Ren on the off-road vehicle and immediately led the team over. When they arrived, Suan Tong ordered the militia team to return to the city. She came to the off-road vehicle. She looked at Luo Ren and pointed at the tank. She had a long mouth, but could not make a sound. She was obviously too shocked. Fortunately, Luo Ren understood what she wanted to express, but he did not explain it. Instead, he smiled and said, "Look at the power of my tank." The escort soldiers on the tank turned back to Luo Ren and asked for instructions. "Sir, the tank is ready." Luo Ren immediately ordered, "Fire." After Luo Ren gave the order, the residents on the city wall no longer discussed, but held their breath and focused on the tank muzzle. Suan Tong also no longer asked, but stared at the place directly opposite the tank muzzle, as if this moment the air froze, and then point dong 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 9 gunshots rang out, and a huge flame burst out from the tank's muzzle. The gun popped out of the chamber, cut through the air and shot towards a small bungalow a mile away. Bang 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 in the same way, 9 explosions and 9 shells hit the same target. Dust suddenly flew up at that location, obscuring the situation. After a few minutes, the dust gradually dispersed, and the bungalow at the target point had disappeared in front of everyone. All that was left was a pile of ruins. Although it was late autumn and the weather was cold, the people on the city wall did not feel the cold at this moment. They roared excitedly and laughed hard. With such sharp tools, if Hushan comes again, they will just wet him. Luo Ren was very satisfied with the power of the tank. With a smile on his face, he got out of the car and looked in the direction of Hu Cheng. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he said secretly, Luo Ren, said I would. We will definitely do what we say when we destroy Hu City. Hushan, just wait, I'm coming soon. After the tank test was completed, Luo Ren returned to the mobile base. Also returning with him was Suan Tong. It was not that Suan Tong wanted to follow, but Luo Ren took the initiative to call her over. At the same time, Luo Ren also ordered people to call Luo Shan, Luo Hei, and Luo Ji. Rally for Luo Ren said, "At present, the number of escorts has greatly increased, and our weapons and equipment have also made a huge leap. 9 tanks are enough to break through Hu City. So I now declare that the 4 of you, Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji, Luo Li, each leading 500 soldiers and myself personally commanding the tank team, we will set off to attack Hucheng tomorrow." "Yes." Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji, Luo Li responded. After the tasks were assigned, Luo Shan, Luo Hei, and Luo Ji, Luo Li went down. Only Luo Ren and Suan Tong were left in the mobile base. Suan Tong looked at Luo Ren with her slightly open point. Luo Ren smiled and said, "You will also set off with us tomorrow. After all, your marksmanship is so good, and you are a strong combat power." Suan Tong nodded, bit her lower lip, and couldn't help but ask again, "How did you get those 9 tanks?" Luo Ren smiled and said, "Where did those guns come from?" "That's where the tanks came from." Well, in short, these tanks can greatly improve the combat effectiveness of the escort. At the same time, Saudi Arabia rushed over and saw a stack of design plans in his hand. After submitting the design plan to Luo Ren, he said, "This is the detailed design plan of the school that I compiled, based on the proposal of Sir, Please take a look. Luo Ren looked at Saudi Arabia's plan carefully and nodded secretly. Saudi Arabia's work efficiency is becoming more and more efficient. This plan is really well designed. I can't find any faults at the moment. Let's start with this plan. Until then, it's okay to modify it if there's anything wrong with it. Returning the plan to Saudi Arabia, Luo Ren said, yes, let's implement it according to this plan. Saudi Arabia's face was full of joy, and he quickly took over the plan and said, yes. Then he left the mobile base. Luo Ren turned his head and saw Su Tang staring at him in surprise again. Luo Ren raised his hand and waved it in front of her eyes and said, are you okay? When Su Tang heard this, he realized what he said and said in surprise, are you still planning to build a school? She only thought about this matter more than 10 days ago, but Luo Ren actually started to do it and even asked Saudi Arabia to sort out the detailed plan. She couldn't help but wonder if Luo Ren could read minds. Thinking of this, Su Tang's face turned red. She covered her chest and took a few steps back while observing Luo Ren vigilantly. Luo Ren was confused by this set of actions. Looking at Su Tang's expression, he felt as if a gangster was going to eat her. I'm just running a school. Why do you react like this? It makes me feel like I have an ulterior motive. Luo Ren said helplessly. Su Tang thought to herself, it doesn't sound like he read my mind. Could it be just a coincidence? Su Tang looked at Luo Ren's expression again and became more sure. Well, he definitely can't read my mind. It should be a coincidence. Thinking of this, the blush on Su Tang's face faded and she said apologetically, I'm sorry, this is not me. I was thinking a few days ago that if there was a school in the base, the younger children could learn things without having to spend a whole day. I have nothing to do. I didn't expect you to. I thought you could read minds. That's why you reacted the way you did just now. Hearing this, Luo Ren suddenly laughed and said, I see. Don't worry, even if I can read minds, I won't read other people's minds casually. I was a law-abiding citizen before, so I won't just pry into other people's privacy. Then he touched his chin again, shrugged his eyebrows, and said with a smile, but why are you blushing just now? Are you thinking you have some thoughts about me in your heart, and you are afraid that I will read it out? Su Tang's face immediately turned red with embarrassment, and she cursed, you stinking gangster. Then he ran out of the mobile base. Chapter 78 Evolution. As winter approaches, the days are always short, and it gets dark soon. Luo Ren came to the small river and looked at the clear river water. He could see fish swimming at the bottom. He found a stone and sat down. He looked at the bright moon in the sky and thought it was beautiful. He lowered his head and took out a piece of jade from his pocket. No, it should be an evolutionary crystal. It was printed with moonlight and reflected a faint green light. It was very beautiful. Luo Ren thought, can you finally evolve again? Holding tightly the evolutionary crystal that fell out of the head of the quasi-level 2 evolved zombie, Luo Ren took off his clothes, leaving only a pair of underwear. He put his right foot into the river and felt the coldness of the river. Cool. After one leg was submerged, Luo Ren lowered the other leg, and then his whole body entered the river. The water along the river was not deep, only reaching a little above Luo Ren's navel point. The previous experiences made Luo Ren not take evolutionary crystals in the mobile base, because the impurities discharged from the body were really foul smelling, and the smell permeated the mobile base for a long time, and could not be dissipated, affecting his ability to sleep. Taking a deep breath, Luo Ren opened his mouth and swallowed the evolutionary crystal in one gulp. The previous process is the same. The evolutionary crystal melts in the mouth and flows into the belly, making the whole body warm, offsetting the coldness of being in the river. The next second, Luo Ren's whole body turned red, and his veins stood out. He gritted his teeth, his eyes widened, and his eyeballs were about to fall out. Gray and sticky impurities were continuously discharged from his body, and then washed away by the river water. Go away without clinging to his body, thereby emitting a foul odor. Luo Ren endured the severe pain and uttered word by word, it hurts so damn much. It was a long lost feeling. Although it was not as painful as the first time I took the evolutionary crystal, it was not much different from the second or third time. The first minute passed, and the severe pain still existed, but his pores no longer removed grey and sticky impurities, as if the impurities in his body had been emptied. At the same time, Luo Ren felt that his body was undergoing some kind of change. This wonderful change made him feel very comfortable, very obsessed. It could be said that it was painful and happy. However, suddenly, the severe pain stopped, and the wonderful changes disappeared. Luo Ren, who had closed his eyes to enjoy it, suddenly opened his eyes with a confused look on his face. Logically speaking, evolution shouldn't take 3 minutes, but it was only a little over a minute. He immediately asked, "What's going on with the system?" The system replied, "After all, the quasi level 2 evolutionary crystal is not a true level 2 evolutionary crystal, and the evolutionary energy contained in it can only last for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Luo Ren was relieved that was the case, and he then asked, "Then have I reached the level of a level 2 evolver now, system?" Answer, no, the host is currently at the peak of level 1 evolution. If you take another quasi level 2 evolution crystal, or level 2 evolution crystal, you can reach level 2 evolution. After hearing this, Luo Ren was a little disappointed, but he still couldn't wait to know how much his strength had increased, and the changes that those wonderful changes had made to his body. With this in mind, Luo Ren began to scrub his body, to wash away the impurities that had not been washed away. However, when his hand touched his skin, his movements froze for a few seconds. Then he rubbed it a few times, and then suddenly raised his hand. He raised his right hand, and took a closer look. On the surface, there was nothing unusual about it. He stretched out the palm of his left hand, to rub his right arm again. It was not an illusion. Logically speaking, human skin should be smooth and elastic. However, although Luo Ren touched his skin, it was still very elastic, but it felt like wood and stone. On the bright side, it looks no different from normal skin, and is even whiter than before. Luo Ren thought to himself, could the strange change just now mean that my skin has become rough? Luo Ren quickly asked the system, why does my skin feel like wood? Reaching the level 2 evolver level will not only increase strength and speed, but the skin will also become as hard as wood and stone, thereby greatly enhancing defense. So that's it. Luo Ren was happy in his heart. Although it felt a little rough, there was no change on the surface, and his defense was greatly increased. This was not a bad thing, but a good thing. Luo Ren climbed ashore, and put on his clothes. Suddenly he saw the big blue stone that had been used to test Luo Shan and the other strength. Luo Ren stepped forward, squatted down, inserted one hand under the stone, and then lifted it up. The 4 to 500 kilograms. He lifted the big stone easily, and then he threw it upward, 3 or 4 meters high. The stone fell down, and was caught by him with one hand. This evolutionary crystal improved his strength a lot. After the strength test was completed, Luo Ren turned around to face the direction of the mobile base. Then his speed exploded to the extreme, turning into a shadow and galloping away. In less than a minute, Luo Ren arrived at the door of the mobile base. The soldiers standing guard were startled by him, and they suddenly became energetic, and no longer sleepy. Walking into the mobile base, Luo Ren changed into a pair of underpants. The wet underpants were really uncomfortable to wear lying on the bed. Luo Ren closed his eyes, and was about to sleep, but after a few seconds his eyelids moved, then he opened them and sat up. When he saw the saber hanging on the hanger, Luo Ren rolled his eyes. Get out of bed, and go to the clothes rack. He pulled out his saber, looked at the sharp blade, swallowed, then rolled up his sleeves, and cut towards his arm. But when the blade touched his hair, it suddenly stopped. No, this knife has chopped too many zombies. It must be full of zombie viruses. If my skin can't bear it, I will be infected with the virus indirectly. No. Luo Ren shook his head, and put the saber back into the scabbard. He sat down on the bed, but he was really curious about how hard his skin was now. If he didn't test it, he might not be able to sleep tonight. After struggling for a while, he finally decided to test it, so he put on his clothes, walked out of the mobile base, and headed towards the military area. The soldier on guard watched Luo Ren's back disappeared into the darkness, and muttered curiously, "What are you going to do tonight?" Luo Ren came to the military area, and faced the arsenal. He said in his heart, "Produce a saber." Ding. The saber is being produced. Ding. The saber is finished. Ding. Remind the host, this is the only time. Next time you can't produce only one saber at night. Hey, you don't need to sleep. Luo Ren put his hands on his waist, and after a few seconds of silence, he was too lazy to care. He pulled out the new saber, rolled up his sleeves, took a deep breath, and cut his arm. He only heard a sizzle sound, and felt a sharp pain. A blood mark immediately appeared on his arm, and blood came out of it. It was cut. It turns out that the evolution is not complete. Not to mention the strength of stone, even wood has not reached it. Luo Ren said to himself, but it is still much stronger than flesh and blood. After getting the result, Luo Ren's curiosity finally disappeared, so he returned to the mobile base and fell asleep. Chapter 79, Expedition to Haching, Crisis on the Way. On the second day, the escort army assembled outside the city. 6 tanks were at the front of the team and 3 tanks were at the end of the team. Reading is different from previous expeditions. This time there are dozens of medium-sized trucks parked neatly next to the escort. A few of them are vehicles for hauling ammunition and fuel, but most of them are used to transport soldiers. All trucks have been modified, not only to increase the strength of the body, but also to install 3 light machine guns. Therefore, they are not moving targets, but have a certain combat effectiveness. There were 22 armored personnel carriers parked in front of these medium-sized trucks, all of which were used to transport soldiers. As for Luo Ren, he still rode his own off-road vehicle. Luo Ren leaned half out of the sunroof of the off-road vehicle, and then shouted, "Let's go." After giving the order, the escorts quickly boarded the vehicles, and marched in the direction of Hu City. Suan Tong and Luo Ren were riding in an off-road vehicle together. She was a woman, so it was definitely inappropriate to be crowded together with a group of big men. Although Luo Ren firmly believed that the guardsmen would not have any evil thoughts, there was always a difference between men and women. It would be better to let Suan Tong ride with him. The speed of vehicles is faster than walking on 2 feet. The journey that used to take 4 or 5 hours now takes nearly half of it in less than an hour on the off-road vehicle. Suan Tong suddenly asked, "Brother Ren, are you sure we can destroy Hu City this time?" Luo Ren confidently pointed to the front tank and asked, "With that thing, how can little Haching be defeated?" His confidence is justified. Hu Cheng's most powerful weapon is just a few rocket launchers. Don't say that his trump card has not been revealed. You must know that attacking the base is not child's play. Facing a 4-meter high concrete city wall, Hu Shai and Ruo, if you have stronger weapons, you will inevitably use them, because unless you can completely crush them in a war, you have to use all your strength in the first shot and end the battle quickly, so as not to give the opponent a chance to counterattack. Suan Tong looked in the direction of Luo Ren's finger, and saw the tank, that looked like a giant steel beast. She couldn't help but recall the scene where the bungalow outside the city was razed to the ground yesterday, and she suddenly felt a little more confident. Then she looked at the armored vehicle behind the tank. A heavy machine gun was installed on the roof of the armored vehicle. At the same time, during the assembly today, she also saw someone in the escort holding a rocket launcher. Thinking of this kind of force, her confidence increased. A lot of growth point at the same time. I also understood why Luo Ren refused his suggestion to recruit a resident army. It's true that there are not many soldiers, but the best. The convoy was driving all the way, and it was already halfway through the journey. It should reach Hu City in about an hour. Luo Ren closed his eyes slightly, thinking about how rich Hu Shan's expression would be when the escort troops came to the city point, and after Hu City was breached, what kind of expressions would Hu Shan have, and what kind of actions would he do at the same time? Did he kneel down and beg for mercy, or did he just drink a bullet and commit suicide, showing a trace of the heroic spirit in troubled times? Squeak. At this moment, the car suddenly stopped. The harsh brakes sounded one after another, and Luo Ren's eyes suddenly opened. Sizzling the intercom in the car emitted the sound of electricity, and then Luo Shan's voice came, "Sir, the road ahead needs to pass through a town, and there may be dangers inside. Should we take a detour or continue moving forward?" Luo Ren said, "Keep going." Luo Shan Deo, yes. After Luo Ren finished speaking, he continued to lean on his seat and closed his eyes to rest. At the same time, he thought to himself, what kind of danger can there be in a small town? Even if there are a few level 1 zombies, with my current strength, I can't do that without using anti-equipment snipers or heavy machine guns. There's no pressure at all. The convoy drove into the town. Suan Tong, who was sitting next to Luo Ren, lowered the window and observed the environment outside. He couldn't help but frown. The atmosphere here was really strange. Logically speaking, such a small town is a densely populated place, and there must be people there. There were many zombies wandering around, but she didn't see a single zombie. If there were no zombies on the street they were walking on, the movement of the convoy was so loud. In addition, the zombies on the street should have been attracted, but there was no such thing. At the same time, her eyes scanned the surrounding houses, and she couldn't help but become more worried. She pushed Luo Ren and said, "Wake up quickly, I feel something is wrong." Luo Ren slowly opened his eyes, looked at Suan Tong and said, "What's wrong?" After entering the town, I observed all the way. There were no traces of fighting such as bullet holes on the buildings on both sides of the street. That means the town has not been cleaned up by humans. But in this case, there is not a single zombie. Don't you think so? Do you think it's strange? Suan Tong said, pointing out the window. Luo Ren looked out the window. Sure enough, as Suan Tong said, there was no trace of fighting or zombies, and there were no bones on the ground. This scene can be explained by the fact that there are many residents in the house before the end of the world, but in this case now it seems a little weird. He lowered his car window and looked outside. The same thing happened. There were no signs of fighting or zombies. So he picked up the walkie-talkie and said, Luo, are we leaving the town soon?" Luo's voice came over the intercom. "Sir, we expect to leave the town in 3 minutes, Luo." Ren said, "Speed up and leave the town, Luo." Ren said, "Speed up and leave the town." Shandao, "Yes, Luo." Ren put down the walkie-talkie, gave Suan Tong a reassuring smile, and said, "It's okay. Maybe this town was an empty city before, and no one lived in it. Naturally, there are no zombies, and we will be there in 3 minutes." Roar. Wow. Before he finished speaking, a roar similar to that of an animal suddenly sounded, followed by a sound of shattering on both sides of the road. The doors and windows of the houses and buildings were broken one after another, and a large number of zombies rushed to the convoy from the houses and other streets. Luo Ren was shocked. At the same time, Luo Shan's anxious voice came from the intercom. "Report to the commander. We are surrounded by a large number of zombies. Please order a counter-attack, Luo." Ren immediately ordered, "Tanks lead the way, and the rest of the vehicles shoot and kill the zombies." Da-da-da-da. The gunshots rang out instantly, but the streets of the town were very narrow, and the zombies came suddenly. At this moment, many zombies had already pounced on the troop carrier. Fortunately, the troop carrier body had increased strength, and these ordinary zombies could not break through for a while. Bang! A zombie fell on the off-road vehicle, and Luo Ren drew his saber and directly pierced the zombie's head. Although it was attacked by a group of zombies, it could not hinder the convoy's progress, but the speed was a little slower. Boom. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire spread throughout the convoy. Luo Ren looked forward and saw smoke coming out of the muzzle of a tank. This shocked him. The tank actually fired. Could it be the evolved zombies? At the same time, Luo Shan's anxious voice came from the intercom again. "Sir, a large number of evolved zombies suddenly appeared in front. Not only Luo Ren, but everyone in the car was extremely shocked." The word large number was used to describe the evolved zombies. Chapter 80, Expedition to Hutching, Crisis on the Way, Part 2. A large number of evolved zombies suddenly appeared in front of them. Even with tanks leading the way, the speed of the convoy slowed down a lot. It was originally expected to leave the town in 3 minutes, but at the current speed, it might not be possible to leave in half an hour. Reading Luo Ren suddenly looked at Suan Tong, and Suan Tong also looked over. The two looked at each other, and slightly at the same time, and they both saw each other's thoughts from each other's eyes. Luo Ren pushed open the skylight on the roof, grabbed the edge of the skylight with both hands, and rushed out with a force. After landing on the roof, Luo Ren looked around. All zombies. Many vehicles were already crawling with zombies, but fortunately, they were all ordinary zombies, and it was difficult to break through the defense of the vehicles. At the same time, after he was exposed, he instantly attracted many zombies to pounce on him. He smiled contemptuously, held the saber in his hand, and began to kill people everywhere. Zombies fell one after another, and soon, there was black blood and zombie corpses everywhere. At the same time, Suan Tong also leaned out of the skylight, holding an automatic rifle. She turned on the burst mode, and 1 out of every 3 shots hit the zombie's head, and the ones that were close were even more accurate. Boom. Another loud noise attracted Luo Ren's attention. He looked at the tanks in front, but he didn't see which tank fired. He only saw a huge rock hit an armored personnel carrier, and the heavy machine guns on the roof were all smashed away. The guards operating the heavy machine guns were also bloody. Luo Ren said to Suan Tong, "I'll go to the front and take a look." Without waiting for Suan Tong to answer, he ran to the front of the convoy at a high speed, killing dozens of zombies along the way. Luo Ren came to the armored vehicle that was hit by the huge rock, jumped on the armored vehicle, looked at the huge rock that weighed 400 or 500 kilograms, and looked down. The guards under the rock were already dead. Luo Ren kicked the rock away with 1 foot, killing several zombies that were rushing towards him. Boom 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 boom. 6 consecutive gunshots, 6 tanks fired, and a puff of green smoke rose up. Luo Ren looked at them in surprise. 6 tanks fired at the same time. It was conceivable that the large number of evolved zombies Luo Shan mentioned was not exaggerated. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, 3 gunshots were heard at the end of the convoy, and then Luo Hei's voice came from the intercom on the armored vehicle under Luo Ren's feet. "I'm Luo Hei, I'm Luo Hei." A large number of evolved zombies suddenly appeared at the back of the convoy. Luo Ren was even more shocked. They were attacked from the front and back. He looked at the 6 tanks in front of him, and then chose to go to the back of the team. 6 tanks should not have much facing problem. A large number of evolved zombies, and there were only 3 tanks in the back, which needed his support more than the front. When he was about to arrive, there was a sudden bang, and then a tall figure jumped up more than 4 meters high, and then smashed straight towards a tank. Boom. It was like a heavy fall, hitting the tank at the back heavily. The whole body of the tank sank down, and the ground cracked. Luo Ren looked closely and saw that it was a tall evolved zombie, about 2 meters and 5 or 6 meters tall. The zombie was full of muscles, and his eyes were emitting a faint red light. The zombie suddenly bent down and held the gun barrel with both hands, then roared and bent it back. The pure steel gun barrel was actually bent by it little by little. This kind of power made Luo Ren frightened. A quasi level 2 power type evolved zombie? With such a tall body and strong power, and the eyes were the same as the quasi level 2 speed type evolved zombies, both of which were emitting a faint red light. What else could it be but a quasi level 2 power type zombie? After the gun barrel of the tank was bent by this quasi level 2 evolved zombie, its attention was focused on the body of the tank. It was seen that it rotated 2 pairs of huge fists and violently smashed the tank under its feet. 1 punch, 2 punches. The hard tank body was actually dented under such a heavy bombardment. The other 2 tanks naturally would not just watch the fun and turned their guns to aim at the quasi level 2 power zombie. The quasi level 2 power zombie sensed the danger and immediately chose to abandon the tank under his feet and turned his attention to the other 2 tanks. He gathered strength in his legs and jumped suddenly. The moment his feet left the tank that had lost its combat effectiveness sank again, and gravel splashed under the tracks, and cracks spread. The jumping quasi level 2 power zombie pounced on another tank, but Luo Ren had already arrived at this time, so how could he let it succeed? He also gathered strength in his legs and burst out at an extreme speed, and then broke through the wind like an arrow from a string. He clenched his right fist, concentrated all his strength on one point, and then hit the quasi level 2 power zombie in midair. Bang. The fist hit the quasi level 2 power zombie's heart directly, just like hitting steel, making a clang sound, which hurt Luo Ren's fist, and the zombie's chest was hit and sunken, ribs were broken, and it flew backwards. Luo Ren then shouted, "Fire!" The tanker in the tank reacted quickly, turning the barrel to lock the quasi level 2 power zombie before it landed, but at the moment when it was about to land, boom boom, the muzzles of the 2 tanks spit out huge flames at the same time, and shells were fired from them. The next moment, a shell hit the quasi level 2 power zombie's thigh, and the entire thigh was directly broken. Another shell hit the quasi level 2 power zombie's abdomen. Even though it was made of steel and iron, a big bloody hole was also punched in the abdomen. However, the zombie's vitality is very tenacious. As long as the heart and brain are fine, it will not die. Therefore, after suffering such a heavy blow, the quasi level 2 power zombie can still stare at Luo Ren angrily, struggling to get up and seek revenge on Luo Ren. Unfortunately, it could still support itself with one leg if its legs were broken, but the bullet in the abdomen broke its spine. The only remaining flesh and blood, even if it was all muscle, could not support its upper body, so it struggled and could not get up. This power type zombie is different from the speed type zombie. It only knows anger and not fear. It is exactly the same as humans. Some are as timid as mice, while others are as brave as cows. Luo Ren thought to himself as he looked at the zombie struggling on the ground. Roar. At the same time, another roar spread throughout the town. After hearing this, the zombies on the field attacked more frantically. Among the zombies pouring in from the houses on both sides and other streets, there were actually first level evolved zombies, including both power type and speed type. Luo Ren looked back and saw several evolved zombies rushing towards his car, and Suan Tong was in the car. For some reason, Luo Ren felt an unprecedented anxiety in his heart. He immediately rushed to the off-road vehicle at the fastest speed. Suan Tong held an AK automatic rifle and relied on her good marksmanship. Although the zombies around her were more crazy and more numerous, they still could not break through her defense. But just after she killed an ordinary zombie, she saw a black shadow attacking her. She quickly fired. The black shadow was very fast. Similarly, Suan Tong's marksmanship was not vegetarian. After dodging 5 shots, the 6th shot finally hit the black shadow, bringing out a burst of black viscous liquid. The black shadow was killed, and the forward momentum made it scratch several meters on the ground before stopping. Suan Tong looked and found that it was a level 1 speed zombie, and her shot hit the zombie's head. Before she could rest, another speed zombie rushed over. She raised her gun and fired, but after pulling the trigger, she found that the bullets were all used up. She quickly replaced the new magazine, but the speed of the speed zombie was so fast that when she changed the magazine and raised her gun to shoot, the speed zombie was less than 2 meters away from her, and the breath of death was blowing in her face. Chapter 81, Expedition to Hutching, Crisis on the Way, Part 3. The sharp nails rapidly enlarged in Suan Tong's pupils. She had only taken 2 evolution crystals. Although her physical fitness was better than that of ordinary people, it was still much worse than that of evolution zombies. Facing the claws that were grabbing her face, she had no way to dodge. Read in despair, a shout broke into her ears, and then the 5 cm long sharp claws hit her face and stopped less than 10 centimeters away, and then suddenly retreated. It was not that this speed type evolution zombie suddenly awakened its humanity, but that Luo Ren behind it grabbed its ankle with one hand and then pulled it back suddenly. At this time, Luo Ren, whether in speed or strength, far exceeded the ordinary level 1 speed type evolution zombie. With this pull, the zombie in his hand was thrown back. Luo Ren did not let go and threw it out, but held it tightly. As we all know, the weight of a single limb is far less than the combined weight of other parts. Therefore, under the huge backward force, the zombie's body strength was not enough, and the thigh root was torn apart, and the rest of the body flew out, leaving a complete thigh in Luo Ren's hand. Suan Tong's despair suddenly disappeared. Seeing that Luo Ren, who was like a killing god, broke the speed zombie, his eyes could not help but glow with a strange light. Not only did he not feel that the scene was bloody, but his heart was beating fast. While she was stunned, the surrounding zombies rushed up immediately. Luo Ren took out the pistol from his waist, holding the knife in one hand and the gun in the other. Although his shooting skills were poor, he only hit 2 or 3 zombies after firing 10 bullets, and only one of them was hit in the head and died. However, Luo Ren's knife skills were good. With a slash of his knife, he split the heads of the zombies that rushed up into 2 pieces. What are you doing? The zombies haven't been completely dealt with yet. Luo Ren saw Suan Tong still staring at him blankly and hurriedly reminded her. Suan Tong reacted immediately and raised her gun to shoot the zombies. After killing several zombies, she stole a glance at Luo Ren, and a blush crept up on her face. I don't know what she was thinking. After the zombies in this area were dealt with, Luo Ren looked around, and his heart tightened. He saw that several troop transport trucks had been overturned by the huge level 1 power type evolved zombies, and then they were swarmed by the zombies. The guards were afraid that they were in danger. His Luo Ren took a deep breath, came to the window, took out the intercom inside, and ordered everyone in the medium-sized truck got off, and annihilated the zombies. In the current situation, they absolutely could not hide in the car anymore. Not only would their vision be affected, but they could only shoot at the entrance of the car and use the 3 machine guns in the car to resist the zombies. This could not fully exert the overall strength of the guards. With so many evolved zombies, if they are surrounded by a few power type zombies, armored vehicles and tanks may not be afraid, but medium-sized trucks are afraid. Just look at the overturned vehicles to understand how serious the consequences are. After Luo Ren gave the order, the guards jumped off the medium-sized trucks one by one. The soldiers who got off first blocked the zombies for those who had not yet gotten off. In this way, soon all the guards on the medium-sized trucks got on the ground and the formation was immediately deployed. Although the formation was deployed to effectively block ordinary zombies, the bullets of the automatic rifles of the evolved zombies, especially the power type evolved zombies, had almost no effect on them. Therefore, the formation was formed in the last second, and was dispersed in the next second, and then formed and dispersed again, and so on. And in this narrow street, so many ordinary zombies rushed one after another, and a few seconds were fatal. Therefore, not only were the zombies killed, but many guards also sacrificed. Luo Ren saw all these scenes. He thought for a moment, opened the trunk of the off-road vehicle, took out an anti-material sniper rifle, and handed it to Suan Tong, saying, "You are responsible for sniping the evolved zombies, and I will protect your safety." Suan Tong took the sniper rifle without hesitation, and began to aim. Dang dang. The sniper rifle fired 2 rounds in a row, and 2 bullets broke through the air and instantly hit the heads of 2 power zombies. Dark red viscous liquid splashed, and the huge bodies fell to the ground. The 2 evolved zombies were killed in an instant, and the pressure on the guards was immediately relieved a lot. At the same time, the huge gunshots also attracted a lot of zombies to attack, including evolved zombies. 2 speed type evolution zombies rushed towards Suan Tong with all 4 limbs. Luo Ren's eyes flashed with a sharp light, and a murderous intent emanated from his body. He moved his feet and rushed out, rushing back to the 2 speed type evolution zombies. Luo Ren's speed was far faster than that of the level 1 evolution zombies. He slashed twice quickly, and 2 sharp edges flashed, and the heads of the 2 level 1 speed type zombies were split open. Then another level 1 power type zombie rushed over, like a human shaped beast. Luo Ren smiled lightly, rushed out, clenched his fist with one hand, and hit the head of the power type zombie suddenly. Bang! The fist hit the head, and the violent power poured out. Only click was heard, and the head of the level 1 power type zombie actually flew out, while the body remained in place. With the tacit cooperation between Luo Ren and Suan Tong, the evolved zombies that attacked the internal convoy were quickly dealt with, which reduced the pressure on the guards by at least 80%. It was very easy to face the remaining ordinary zombies. Luo Ren looked back at Suan Tong and smiled slightly. Suan Tong smiled back, but her smile suddenly froze in less than 3 seconds. Her eyes instantly turned into anxiety, and she said anxiously, "Danger." When he heard Suan Tong's reminder, the word danger popped up in Luo Ren's mind at the same time. He turned his head and his pupils suddenly shrank. He saw a figure flying over, and its speed was much faster than the level 1 speed type evolution zombie, and even faster than the quasi level 2 speed type zombie. Luo Ren subconsciously raised his knife to block. Clang, sparks flew everywhere, and it was also lucky that he was able to block this extremely fast sneak attack. Then Luo Ren roared, clenched his left hand into a fist and punched hard. The attacking object was faster, and he turned back to avoid this fatal punch. At this time, Luo Ren looked closely and found that it was a zombie, and the figure looked familiar. Until the zombie suddenly turned upside down. Luo Ren was shocked. It turned out to be the quasi level 2 speed type zombie that drilled out of the cellar of Gau's Hay. At the same time, He remembered what the system said, that it would take 7 days to become a real level 2 zombie, and 7 days had already passed, which means that the zombie in front of him had reached level 2. Luo Ren's heart was pounding. He didn't know how terrifying a level 2 zombie was, but from the sneak attack just now, he could at least tell that the zombie in front of him was faster than him. The reason he was able to block it just now was a subconscious action plus good luck, as the saber was just right in front of the attack position, otherwise he would have died long ago. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 80 to Level 2 Evolved Zombie. The head of the zombie in front of him suddenly turned 180 degrees, staring at Luo Ren. Luo Ren was horrified. He saw a look of triumph in the zombie's eyes. Based on the sneak attack just now, it seemed that evolving to the real level 2 not only greatly increased its speed, but also improved its wisdom. Boom. When the two looked at each other, Suan Tong suddenly fired 2 shots. She thought she could kill the zombie while it was not paying attention. Even if it could not be killed, it would be better to injure it. This would also reduce its combat effectiveness and make it easier for Luo Ren to deal with it. It's a pity that Suan Tong underestimated the level 2 speed zombie in front of her. On the surface, she was just looking at Luo Ren, but at the same time, she was also wary of her. The moment she pulled the trigger, the level 2 speed zombie had already noticed it and immediately acted reaction, thus dodging a bullet with a speed of more than twice the speed of sound. The level 2 speed zombie locked eyes with Suan Tong angrily and jumped towards her in a flash. Upon seeing this, Luo Ren hurriedly stood in front of Suan Tong and shouted at the same time, "Hurry and hide in the car." Suan Tong knew that she couldn't be of much help, so she obediently retracted into the car and closed the sunroof. The level 2 speed zombie stopped immediately when it saw Luo Ren and immediately returned all its attention to Luo Ren. It remembered the human in front of it and even remembered that it had fought with him and lost. Although it had just made a sneak attack, this human being was startled, but was not injured, which made him a little unsure whether he could defeat this human being now. It kept pacing, observing the human in front of it. The chance of a sneak attack was gone. Then came the hard steel in front of it, which made it very hesitant. After all, it had lost to this human before. As the saying goes, if the enemy doesn't move, I won't move. The zombies in front of him were pacing back and forth, but they made no offensive moves. Faced with this situation, Luo Ren knew that he didn't know his opponent, so he naturally wouldn't take the initiative to attack. Therefore, the two were in a stalemate. About 5 minutes later, the level 2 speed zombies still couldn't muster up the courage to fight this human head on. At the same time, the number of ordinary zombies was getting smaller and smaller. Luo Ren noticed this situation and was overjoyed. As long as the guards get out of here, I can't do it to you alone. How can a group of people do it to you? Thinking of this, Luo Ren couldn't help but move slightly. Even with this tiny movement, the level 2 zombie felt like it was facing a formidable enemy. It thought Luo Ren was going to take action, which made it even more guilty. The human in front of it didn't seem to be afraid at all. It must be confident that it could defeat it. It growled lowly. He took a few steps back and looked at Luo Ren with a little fear in his eyes. Seeing the zombie's movements, Luo Ren's muscles immediately tensed up, ready to fight at any time. However, his worries were unnecessary. He saw the zombie looking up to the sky and letting out a sharp roar. The roar lasted for nearly 5 seconds before it stopped. The zombie took a deep look at Luo Ren, then jumped onto the roof next to the street, looked back again, and disappeared from Luo Ren's sight without looking back. After the level 2 speed zombie left, the remaining zombies should have heard its roar and retreated one after another, including the level 1 evolution zombies. This scene really caught Luo Ren's eyes. Although he was surprised by the individual strength of level 2 zombies, it could not make him feel scared. However, this scene actually made him a little scared. He could control people lower than himself. Zombies will also use combat methods such as sneak attacks. Only level 2 zombies have such wisdom, but what about level 3? and higher levels 4 and 5. God, you are so determined to destroy humanity. Luo Ren roared in his heart. After a long time, the waves in Luo Ren's heart calmed down. He glanced around and saw corpses all over the ground, including many of the bodyguards. The losses this time were quite serious. Suan Tang got off the off-road vehicle and saw the bodies of the guard soldiers on the ground. Her eyes turned red. She walked to Luo Ren and asked, "Are we going to continue to attack Hu City?" Luo Ren shook his head, returned to the base along the same route and rest for 2 days to make plans. I was in high spirits when I set out, but I didn't expect that Cheng Yaojin appeared on the way. No, it was a level 2 zombie and a group of corpses. The attack on Hu City had to be postponed for a few days. 4 squadron leaders, Luo Shan, Luo He, and Luo Jialuoli, trotted over. Luo Shan took the lead and said, "Sir, the first squadron has lost 167 people." Luo He said, "Sir, the second squadron has lost 236 people." Luo Ji said, "Sir, the third squadron has lost 301 people." Luo Li said, "Sir, the fourth squadron has lost 238 people." After listening to the report, Luo Ren calculated in his mind that a total of 942 people had been lost, which was close to half of the number of people on the expedition. He smiled bitterly and shook his head and ordered, "You all go and clean up." 30 returned to base in minutes. After speaking, Luo Ren stood up and headed towards the back of the convoy. Among the 3 tanks, one had a bent barrel and a much dented roof. The other 2 tanks had no major problems. At this time, the people on the damaged tank had been fortunately, he was rescued. For Luo Ren, every tanker is very precious, and the tank is not that important. Because the points are enough, he can just exchange it. It just has to wait a day. Luo Ren crossed the tank and saw the quasi level 2 power evolved zombie. It was already dead and its head was smashed to pieces by the shells. Searching with his eyes, he found the evolution crystal with a light green color not far away. Picking up the evolution crystal, Luo Ren sighed. Those level 1 evolution crystals and this quasi level 2 evolution crystal can be regarded as some compensation for this loss. Looking at the quasi level 2 evolution crystal in his hand, Luo Ren thought to himself, little Jade, please let me reach the level of a level 2 evolver quickly, otherwise I will just have to run away when facing a level 2 evolution zombie." After collecting the evolution crystal, Luo Ren ordered people to collect the ordinary evolution crystals. The advantage of the guard army is that there is no need to worry about someone embezzling them. Half an hour later, the convoy turned around and returned to the mobile base. In the car, Suan Tang stared at Luo Ren without saying a word. Luo Ren turned his head to look at her and asked, "Is there something on my face, Su?" And Tong shook her head and said, "No." Luo Ren said, "Then why are you staring at me, Su?" And Tong's face flushed slightly and she turned her head away. At the same time, she asked, "The zombie was so fast just now. Are you sure you can beat it?" Luo Ren shook his head and answered very honestly, "No, Su." And Tong's heart moved and she turned her head to look at Luo Ren again and asked, "Then why are you still standing in front of me?" Luo Ren looked into her eyes and suddenly he smiled and said, "After it kills you, it will definitely kill me. Anyway, it's all going to die. It doesn't matter if it dies early or late. However, I didn't expect it to choose to retreat. This is too strange." "Is that so?" Suan Tang was a little disappointed, but she smiled and said, "It doesn't matter whether it's strange or not. It's a good thing that the zombie can retreat." Luo Ren also smiled and said, "Yeah, who cares?" Authors. Words. Thank you for your support. Friends who like this book, please move your fingers to give a good review. I'm the first to thank you. Chapter 83, Hu Chengjin again. After the guards withdrew, the town fell into silence. Only the corpses on the ground and the bullet holes on the walls showed that a fierce battle had taken place here. Clouds floated in the sky, and the red sun had half sunk into the mountain. Under the setting sun, a car came from a distance. The car drove into the town at high speed and the speed gradually slowed down. The people in the car lowered the window and leaned out. When they saw the corpses on the ground, they were all shocked. They had walked this road many times and were familiar with this town. The people in this town moved away as a whole before the end of the world. It was considered an empty town. They had walked many times without seeing a zombie point, but the scene here now was completely different from what he knew. They looked carefully and saw the bullet holes on the walls of the houses on both sides of the road. Combined with the corpses on the ground, they could imagine how fierce the battle had been here. "Captain, let's go back quickly. It's too scary here." There were 4 people in the car, 1 driving, 1 co-pilot, and 2 people sitting in the back seat. The driver said to the co-pilot, "You have never seen a zombie? Have you never seen a corpse? You are too timid." One of the people in the back seat complained. The co-pilot, the man called the captain, looked away from the window, looked ahead, and said, "Keep driving forward for a while." Although the driver was scared, he didn't dare to disobey the captain's words, so he could only bite the bullet and continue to drive forward. "Stop!" the captain suddenly shouted, which scared the driver. He stepped on the brakes and looked at the captain in the co-pilot seat nervously. He saw that he was staring straight ahead, as if he was attracted by something. The driver glanced and saw that the 2 companions in the back seat were also staring straight ahead, which made him look involuntarily along their lines. When his eyes fell to the front, he was startled. He saw a zombie with 4 limbs on the ground and a faint red light in its eyes staring at them. While staring at the zombie, he reached out and tugged at the corner of the captain's clothes, and his tone was obviously full of fear. "Captain, this seems to be an evolved zombie. What should we do?" The captain was obviously very nervous and scared. His Adam's apple rolled. He swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, "Back up slowly." The driver nodded slightly and drove the car back up slowly. However, every time the car backed up 1 meter, the red-eyed zombie followed 1 meter, and every time it backed up 2 meters, the red-eyed zombie followed 2 meters. The 4 people in the car were extremely nervous and scared. They backed up, and the red-eyed zombie followed. The driver couldn't bear the pressure brought by the fear. He screamed and stepped on the accelerator. The speed of the car backed up suddenly increased, but the red-eyed zombie's head turned 180 degrees, and a smile was seen in its eyes. The car retreated rapidly, and suddenly, with a bang, it seemed to hit something. The 4 people looked back at the same time. When they saw what was blocking their retreat, their pupils suddenly shrank. Suddenly, a foul smell filled the car. They saw that the driver was scared and peed his pants. I saw that a fat level 1 zombie blocked their retreat behind the car. Swish. At the same time, a black shadow flashed, and the red-eyed zombie jumped onto the hood of the car, and a claw quickly grabbed the driver. Smash. The windshield shattered instantly, and the sharp claws like daggers pierced into the driver's chest, splashing a flower of blood. The claws of the red-eyed zombie pierced his heart, causing him to lose his life. Before he could scream in pain point buff, the red-eyed zombie pulled out his hands, with a still warm heart stuck in his 5 claws. He opened his mouth, and was about to eat the freshly baked heart, but his nose moved and smelled the stench from the driver's crotch. He couldn't help but show a look of disdain, and then threw the heart to the level 1 power zombie behind the car. The level 1 power zombie was not picky about food, and he opened his mouth to catch the heart, and began to chew it, with minced meat and blood splashing out. This scene made the other 3 people terrified and shocked. The red-eyed zombie moved his eyes to the co-pilot captain. Seeing the driver's fate, the co-pilot captain was very scared, but then he thought it was going to be a death anyway, so he might as well fight. He quickly took out his pistol, pointed the muzzle at the red-eyed zombie, and then pulled the trigger, but the red-eyed zombie was obviously much faster than him. Before the trigger was completely pulled, the red-eyed zombie's claws had pierced the co-pilot captain's eyebrows, and the whole person instantly collapsed. While the body was still active, the red-eyed zombie quickly stabbed the co-pilot captain's chest with his other claw, took out the still warm and slightly beating heart, and then ate it in 2 or 3 bites. At this time, the 2 people in the back seat were so scared that their bodies were stiff and motionless, and they couldn't make a sound. Even if they opened their mouths, they could only watch the red-eyed zombie enter the car, and then the sharp claws pierced his chest. At this moment, the severe pain swept through their bodies, making their stiff bodies no longer stiff, and their voiceless throats also recovered at this moment. However, when they were about to scream, the red-eyed zombie had already taken out their hearts. Seeing the heart still beating slightly in the red-eyed zombie's hand, the two wanted to scream, but they couldn't make a sound. The light of life in their eyes quickly dimmed and then went out. 0.5 kilometers behind the town, an army of 10,000 people was resting here, in the middle of the army, on a black Humvee. Hushan was smoking a cigarette and spitting out clouds of smoke. I don't know how long it took, but his brows suddenly wrinkled and he muttered, "Why haven't you come back yet?" He stretched out the window with one hand and hooked his palm. Chen Hui immediately ran over with a flattering smile on his face. "City Lord?" Hushan asked. "Have the pioneers returned?" Chen Hui shook his head and replied, "No." Hushan took a puff of cigarette and then asked, "It's been almost an hour. Why haven't you come back yet? Could it be that Luo Ren was arrested like the previous team?" Chen Huadeo, "How about sending a team of vanguards to take a look?" Hushan fell into deep thought and thought, this place is still more than 20 kilometers away from the base, so Luo Ren has deployed defensive personnel in such a large area? Hushan shook his head slightly. This should not be possible. Maybe that team he encountered a swarm of corpses. Hushan nodded slightly, confirming his idea. He must have encountered a swarm of corpses. Then he looked forward and said, "In this case, it seems that we have to take a detour. There is no need to push through and cause unnecessary losses." Thinking of this, Hushan immediately ordered Chen Huadeo, "Send the order. Let's take a detour and take the second route." Chen Hui didn't know what Hushan thought, and no matter what Hushan thought, his mission was just to carry out Hushan's orders. Besides, the second route was only a little further, and he would be able to reach the base in the end. Chen Hui went down to deliver the order. The cigarette in Hushan's hand had burned out. He took another cigarette, took a heavy drag, then blew out a puff of smoke, and looked in the direction of the base. His eyes were full of hatred and anger. He then looked at the rearview mirror, which reflected the car behind him, and what was covered by a military green canvas on the car behind him. The author has something to say. Thank you all for your support. Friends who like this book, please use your fingers to leave a positive review. I'm the first to say thank you. Chapter 84, Hu Chengjin Again, Part 2. The sky in autumn is grayish white, because it is the season of falling leaves, and the already desolate world becomes even more desolate. Read the speed of the convoy slowed down, because there was a big city in front of it, and the sound coming from it made the desolation fade a lot. The soldiers guarding the city wall were surprised to see the convoy return. How could they come back so soon after going out? Moreover, there were several fewer cars. What was even more strange was that one of the 9 tanks had a dent on the top and a bent gun barrel. How much force could bend a pure steel gun barrel into such an arc? The city gate was wide open, and the convoy drove into the city. The residents in the city gathered around to watch. Unlike in the past, the residents did not cheer or dance this time, because there had never been an example of returning to the city so quickly in the past, and each car was full when it set out, but now almost half of the guards on each car were missing, and one tank was even more strange, as it was seriously damaged. Moreover, the windows of the off-road vehicle that belonged to the commander were always rolled down after a victory in the past, and the commander would greet them with a smile on his face, but today they were all closed, and they also felt that every soldier of the guard in the car seemed to be in a heavy mood. Luo Ren looked out the window of the off-road vehicle, and the faces of the residents passed by him one by one. He couldn't help thinking, they must think that the guards are not good enough to return to the city in such a miserable state. My image must have plummeted in their hearts. Su and Tang saw Luo Ren's mood and was about to comfort him, but heard, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards. The guards are mighty, long live the guards." In this way, all the residents shouted vigorously, repeating the 2 sentences, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards," over and over again. The guards on the troop carrier were all moved. They looked at the faces of the residents, and the eyes of these passionate men turned red. In the off-road vehicle, Luo Ren's eyes sparkled. He saw the faces outside the window. Everyone was so handsome and beautiful. Even he couldn't help but turn red. Su Antong, who was beside Luo Ren, was moved and tears were rolling in her eyes. She might fall at any time. Luo Ren clenched his fists, then loosened them. He opened the roof skylight, leaned out half of his body, and looked around at the residents on both sides of the road. The residents saw Luo Ren and shouted even harder, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards." Luo Ren raised his clenched right fist, took a deep breath, and shouted at the same time, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards. Guards are mighty, long live the guards." The residents were even more excited when he shouted, and they raised their fists and shouted at the top of their lungs, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards." Such emotions inspired everyone, including Suan Tong in the car and the guard soldier driving the car. Suan Tong cried and shouted, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards." The guard soldier driving the car also shouted excitedly and moved, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards." The guard soldiers and other cars also followed suit and shouted, "The guards are mighty, long live the guards." In this way, the low mood was swept away, and everyone regained their fighting spirit again. Luo Ren thought to himself, "I was wrong. How could such a resident betray?" Recruiting the resident army can indeed be implemented. The guards returned to the barracks, while Luo Ren came to the military zone, along with the severely damaged tank. He ordered the tank to drive into the tank factory. Luo Ren heard the system's voice. "The tank is damaged by 46%. Repairing requires .*90,000. It is expected to take 1 hour. Do you want to repair it?" Luo Ren chose to repair it without hesitation. Then he called up the light screen of the arsenal and increased the number of guards again. Although he had the intention to recruit the resident army could not be directly put into battle like the guards. At least 3 months of training were needed to form combat effectiveness, and the most important thing is that the number of residents is limited. If they are taken to fight, they will die. If they are sacrificed, it is not like the guards can be produced again. Therefore, even if Luo Ren really recruited the resident army, he would only let them guard the base or perform some basic daily search and rescue tasks. Of course, as time goes by, when the population reaches a certain number, Luo Ren may go to war with the resident army. As the sky gradually darkened, Luo Ren returned to the mobile base, and someone had already brought dinner to the table. He did not eat immediately, but took a shower and changed clothes first, and then sat down to eat. After taking a bite, Luo Ren's chewing action suddenly froze, and then chewed and tasted. "The taste is wrong. This is not made by Li Jiayu. Li Jiayu's level should not be that bad. Is this stir-fried meat with a whole bag of salt?" "Luo, Bei, come in." The sentry on duty trotted over unsalted. Luo Ren pointed to the dishes on the table and asked, "Who sent this dish?" Luo Bei said, "Report to the commander. It was sent by the soldier Suan Tong." Luo Ren muttered, "Strange. Why did she send it? Hasn't Li Jiayu always sent me food?" Luo Bei said, "Report to the commander." "I don't know." Luo Ren glanced at him and said, "I didn't ask you. Go to your post." Well, as the saying goes, who knows that every grain of rice on the plate is hard-earned? Although too much salt was added, Luo Ren still decided to finish the dishes on the table. After all, who let me be a 3 good student when I was in school and a 3 good citizen when I entered society? So I should start with myself to eliminate waste. Luo Ren finally finished the dishes on the table in a hurry. At this time, Luo Ren's face turned blue. He ran to the refrigerator quickly, opened the refrigerator door, took out a large bottle of beverage, and drank it all in one gulp, which diluted the salty taste in his mouth. At this time, Luo Bei's voice came from outside the door. "Report to the commander. Soldier Suan Tong wants to see you." Luo Ren said, "Let her in." Suan Tong walked into the mobile base and looked at the table at first glance. There were only a few empty plates on the table. Obviously, all the dishes had been eaten up. This made her happy from the bottom of her heart, and she couldn't help laughing. Luo Ren came over with a 2L bottle of beverage and asked, "And Tong, why are you here?" Suan Tong did not answer, and asked back, "Brother Ren, have you eaten all these dishes?" Luo Ren nodded, gulped down a big sip of the beverage, and then said, "I don't know who made this. How does it taste?" Before Luo Ren finished speaking, Suan Tong asked with expectation in her eyes. Luo Ren swallowed the salty food that was about to hit his mouth. He looked at Suan Tong and thought, this table of dishes is not cooked by her. No wonder it is so salty. People who don't know would think that the salt cellar was beaten to death. although he thought so in his heart, Luo Ren would not say so. After all, it was a heartfelt gesture. So he laughed and said, "It tastes pretty good, and Tong, why do you want to cook for me? Isn't this to thank you for saving me?" Su and Tong blushed and said, "This is my first time cooking. My parents have never eaten my cooking. It's my first time cooking, no wonder." Luo Ren pretended to be surprised and said, "It's my first time, that's amazing. Li Jiu's cooking is not as good as yours." "Really?" Su and Tong said happily, "How about I cook for Brother Ren every day in the future?" Chapter 85, Hu Chengjin Again, Part 3. Day by day. Hearing that Su and Tong wanted to cook for herself every day, the expression on Luo Ren's face froze instantly. This stuff was so salty that it could be tolerated after 1 or 2 meals, but it was hard to marinate it into bacon if it was eaten every day. His mind was racing, thinking of how to reject Su and Tong in a reasonable and harmless way. Su and Tong also noticed something was wrong with Luo Ren's expression and immediately asked, "Brother Ren is unwilling?" "Well, that, I eat relatively lightly," Luo Ren said hesitantly. Su and Tong carefully savored the meaning of Luo Ren's words, then stretched out her fingers to dip some of the soup left on the plate, put it into her mouth and sucked it. Her fingers dipped in the soup entered her mouth, and she frowned. "It's so salty. It's strange. I didn't put sugar in it. Why is it so salty?" She looked at Luo Ren with an apologetic look and said, "I made a mistake this time. Brother Ren, don't worry, I will see it clearly next time before releasing it." When Luo Ren heard Su and Tong's words, she was speechless. Even if it was her first time cooking, such a low-level mistake should not be made. The difference between salt and sugar was quite big, and didn't she know to taste it after it was done? However, Luo Ren didn't want to hurt her self-confidence, and still had a smile on his face, saying, "Next time you don't know the spices, you will know after a taste." Su and Tong scratched her head in embarrassment, then cleared the dishes on the table and said, "I know, I'll leave first, yeah." Luo Ren nodded. Su and Tong walked to the door with the bowl and chopsticks, paused slightly, looked back at Luo Ren with a smile, and was about to step out when she suddenly heard report. She was so frightened that her hand loosened, and there was a clang sound, and the plate in her hand, the bowl fell to the ground and broke into more than 8 pieces. "This is ruining my job," Luo Ren thought to himself, then looked outside the door and saw Luo Shan standing upright and immediately asked, "What's going on?" Luo Shan Dao, Hu Cheng's army was discovered 3 kilometers away. Hu Chengjin. Luo Ren sneered, Hu Shan, I encountered zombies on the way and returned without success, but I didn't expect you to come here on your own initiative. It's okay, I will kill them here for you to avoid wasting artillery attacks." City, Luoshan. Luo Ren looked at Luoshan and said, "Assemble the escort immediately and follow me out of the city to destroy Hu Cheng's army." "Yes." Luo Shan responded. Whoosh, bang bang bang. At this moment, there were suddenly several sounds of breaking through the air, followed by strong explosions. Luo Ren was startled and rushed out of the mobile base. He looked towards the city gate and saw that the place was filled with dust after the explosion. "Hurry up and summon the escort," Luo Ren said, and flew towards the city gate. Luo Shan knew that the situation was urgent and immediately went to summon the escort without any delay, while Su and Tong followed Luo Ren to the city gate. When they came to the city gate, they saw a gap in the city wall. Several guards were lying on the ground in a mess, lifeless, and several had their hands and legs broken, but none of them made a sound of pain. Instead, he continued to defend with his gun in hand. Luo Ren immediately ordered that the injured people be sent to the arsenal of the military zone for repairs, and then he jumped onto the city wall. The moment he jumped onto the city wall, he only heard 3 cannon shots, dong dong dong. Immediately after 3 shells pierced the sky, Luo Ren's muscles tightened, and his legs exerted force and he rolled backwards. Bang bang bang, 3 cannonballs hit the city wall, causing rubble to fly in an instant. Another intact section of the city wall was hit with a gap. Luo Ren was horrified. The cannons were obtained from Hu Chengjin. Hu Cheng's army was 3 kilometers away, and the rocket launcher's shooting range could not reach that far. Therefore, it only had cannons. At this moment, the buzzing of the engine reached his ears, and he saw 9 tanks speeding towards him. Luo Ren suddenly gained confidence and cursed, "Damn, the cannon is amazing. I even have a mobile cannon here. Open the city gate and charge with tanks." Luo Ren shouted. The guards guarding the city saw that the tanks were equally powerful and immediately opened the city gate after hearing Luo Ren's order. 3 kilometers outside the city, Hu Cheng's army was stationed in a military tent point behind Hu Shan. The scout vomited lotus flowers and said excitedly, "Report to the city lord. Under our shelling, a big gap was made in the wall of the base city, and more than 10 guardsmen guarding the city were killed." After hearing this, Hu Shan was overjoyed and laughed loudly. Okay. After saying 3 good words in a row, Hu Shan's excited mood calmed down a little. He walked out of the military tent and looked at the base city with sinister eyes. His hands behind him could not help but clenched his fists. Then he looked at a place where 3 people were standing there. Although the cannon is rusty, it does work and can be fired smoothly. At this time, the soldiers operating the cannon are ejecting the previous shell casing and loading new shells. The 3 cannons greatly increased Hu Shan's self-confidence. He looked at the base city again and said harshly, "Luo Ren, you never thought that I could get cannons. This time I will see what use your sniper rifle has. When your city wall is blown down, our army of 10,000 people will surge forward, and your base city will flow into a river of blood." Boom, boom, boom. The 3 cannons fired again, and the shells pierced the sky and hit the wall of the base city. The gravel flew, and the dust flew up, covering up the tragic scene of the shelling. When the dust dispersed, they saw another gap in the wall. This gap, it was bigger than the first round of shelling, enough for 2 people to walk in, and outside by side point Hu Shan felt relieved when he saw the tragic situation of the base city through the telescope. But at this moment, he saw the gate of the base city suddenly opened, thinking, is Luo Ren going to surrender? However, he thought of Luo Ren's previous experience and snorted coldly, "Humph, it's too late to surrender now. Just wait for the bloody massacre of my 10,000 man army." But the next second, the base proved that his guess was completely wrong, and his fantasy of blood flowing in the base city was instantly shattered. He saw the gate open, and it was not Luo Ren who surrendered with a white flag, but a steel beast. This. Hu Shan couldn't believe it. When he thought his eyes were blurry, he put down the telescope and rubbed his eyes, and then raised the telescope to look. The steel beast still existed and had been arranged with the muzzle pointed directly at them. "Ah!" Hu Shan screamed through the telescope and ran towards his Hummer. Just when the surrounding Hu Cheng army soldiers were wondering, they heard boom, boom. Several gunshots, and 9 shells broke through the sky. Bang, bang, bang. Like a meteor falling from the sky, the Hu Cheng army's garrison exploded everywhere. 2 shells hit the Hu Cheng army's artillery position. The rusty cannon was instantly blown apart, and the artillerymen were blown several meters high, and then fell heavily to the ground, meeting the King of Hell directly. Hu Shan ran all the way, shouting all the way, "Retreat." Chapter 86, Hu Chengjian again, Part 4. One after another, shells streaked across the sky, hitting various parts of the Hu Cheng army's garrison. From time to time, soldiers of the Hu Cheng army were blown several meters high, and those who were directly hit by shells were instantly torn into pieces, turning into pieces of meat. This made the Hu Cheng army's garrison full of panic screams and painful groans. Hu Shan had already run to his Hummer. He raised his telescope and saw 9 tanks from the base city rushing towards them. He shouted, "Retreat, retreat," but his voice was too weak and was completely covered by the noise of the panicked army. Seeing the tanks rushing towards him, Hu Shan could not care about these people. Coincidentally, Chen Hui ran over at this time. "City Lord." Hu Shan didn't even look at him and said directly, "Get in the car." How could Chen Hui not guess what his own city lord was going to do? Without saying a word, he got on the driver's seat of the Hummer, and Hu Shan quickly got on the back seat point bus. The car started, and the roar of the engine attracted nearby soldiers. In fear of death, they didn't care about the city lord or not, and ran towards the Hummer, shouting, "Lord, take me with you." Hu Shan looked indifferent, thinking only of his own life, and didn't care about these people. Seeing them rushing towards him, he hurriedly shouted, "Go, Although Chen Hui sympathized with these comrades who were also living and dying together, he stepped on the accelerator without hesitation for his own life, stirring up dust all the way and driving away. When the soldiers of Hachanami saw that the city lord had fled, their morale collapsed instantly. The panicked soldiers of Hachanami began to snatch the remaining vehicles and even fired guns. Suddenly, gunshots rang out, and many people fell in a pool of blood. Their eyes were full of unwillingness. In the end, they did not die at the hands of the enemy, but died at the hands of their own people. Some people who cherished their lives dared not rob cars when they saw this scene, so they ran away. It really fulfilled the saying that you can only rely on yourself for everything, and you have to rely on your two legs to escape. The rest of the people neither robbed cars nor used their two legs to escape, but held the two ends of the gun with both hands and raised them high, then knelt on the ground waiting for the arrival of the base tanks and guards. Base point: the enemy's artillery fire had not been fired for such a long time, and it was obviously destroyed by the tanks. Luo Ren jumped on the top of the city and raised the telescope to look. Sure enough, the Hachanami was in chaos. He smiled coldly, put down the telescope, and then waved his hand. Attack. At this time, all the guards in the city had gathered. With Luo Ren's order, they shouted, "Kill!" The killing intent soared into the sky like a substance. The morale of the guards was as high as a tide. With Luo Ren's order, they rushed out of the base and rushed towards the Hachanami station. The tanks advanced to the Hachanami station 3 kilometers away, and first saw rows of people kneeling on the ground with their guns raised high. Then they saw corpses everywhere, and people who were still snatching vehicles. And then there were those who looked as small as ants, and used their legs to escape. The turret rotated and aimed at the Hachanami soldiers who were snatching vehicles. Some of these people immediately learned from their comrades who knew the situation, raised their guns with both hands, and knelt on the ground to show their surrender. And some of them were so angry that they didn't care about anyone, just to snatch vehicles. There were even a few people who saw the tanks with red eyes and came towards the tanks with guns, which meant that they wanted to snatch the tanks. After all, tanks are also cars. However, although the tank is a car, it is not an ordinary car. It is a steel beast known as the King of Land Warfare. Facing the Hachanami soldiers who rushed over with red eyes, the guards in the tanks would naturally not sit and wait for them to snatch point. The machine guns mounted on the tanks started the sweeping mode, and the bullets rained down on the red-eyed Hachan soldiers. They were really red-eyed and lost their minds. They didn't dodge or evade, but raised their guns to fight back. The result can be imagined. The bullets from the machine guns instantly penetrated their bodies and turned them into sieves, while the bullets they fired on the tanks only made a sound. After this wave of people were cleared, only the surrendered people were left in the entire garrison. As for those who had already escaped, they had to wait for Luo Ren to decide whether to pursue them. Soon, the guards rushed over. The murderous guards came to the garrison. The scene in front of them surprised them. They didn't expect that the battle would be resolved so quickly. The murderous intent was useless at this moment. But an off-road vehicle drove over and stopped in front of the guards. Luo Ren got out of it and was a little surprised to see the Hachanami soldiers kneeling on the ground. However, when he saw the pile of corpses in front of the tank, he was relieved. Facing such a steel beast, only an army with faith and fearlessness would not surrender, and the Hachanami was obviously not such a team. The Hachanami soldiers stole a glance at Luo Ren, their bodies trembling uncontrollably, and their inner thoughts were very rich. Will he kill us? In ancient times, there were deeds of killing prisoners in pits. In this situation, it is not impossible for him to do such a thing. This Commander Luo Ren looks so handsome, he should not massacre prisoners. Mom, I miss you. Luo Ren glanced at the kneeling Hachanami soldiers and said secretly, it is estimated that there are 2,000 or 3,000 people, which is a large number. I hope they have not done anything cruel, otherwise it will be a pity. Take their guns and detain them all. Luo Ren said. As the voice fell, the stones hanging in the hearts of the trembling Hachan soldiers fell to the ground instantly, and the joy of survival spread to all the captives, and most of them showed a relaxed expression. The guards quickly confiscated the prisoners' guns and tied their hands one by one. Although these prisoners had their guns confiscated and their hands tied, they still looked relaxed because they thought they would not die. However, Luo Ren sneered, if you have not done anything cruel, you can relax and not die, but if you have done those damn things, think about your last words before Hacheng is destroyed. Of course, I don't know who you will tell, and I don't care who you tell, and I won't provide you with paper and pen to write a suicide note. After hearing this, more than half of the 2 or 3,000 captives were still relaxed and even happier, while the rest of them instantly put on masks of pain, and fear grew in their hearts. Luo Ren saw the changes in these people. He just sneered and ordered, return to the city. Luo Ren did not choose to chase the fleeing Hacheng soldiers, because there was no need. Those who were lucky enough to return to Hacheng or join other shelters, those who joined other shelters were left alone for now, and those who returned to Hacheng would just wait for the guards to come to the city point, and those who were unlucky would either become food for zombies or food for evolved animals. So these people were no threat to Luo Ren at all. Chapter 87 Level 2 Evolver. Under the leadership of Luo Ren, the escort escorted more than 2,000 prisoners back to the base, which was warmly welcomed by the residents. It was the first time for the prisoners to see the inside of the base, and they were immediately stunned by the harmonious scene. Among them, those who are confident that they will not die have begun to fantasize. Can I live here in the future? I never want to go back to that ghost place in Hacheng. And those who don't know whether they are alive or dead think, what a beautiful place, I wish I could survive. I really regret doing those things. As for those who knew that they were bound to die, they shed tears of regret and thought, why? God, you are such a bastard. Why did you let me come to such a good place, but then you want me to die? I hate it. Exclamation mark. I hate it. Luo Ren had no idea what these people were thinking, and he felt very comfortable. He lost half of his troops in the expedition this morning, and Hu Shan came to kill them in the afternoon. He almost wanted to let Hu Shan go. Entering the city, Luo Ren first looked at the 2 gaps created by the cannonballs. He immediately called out a blue light screen to repair the damaged city wall. Then he called Luo Shan and ordered, you will arrange for these prisoners. Luo Shan scratched his head when he heard this, with an awkward expression on his face, and said, the dungeon at the commander's base and the place where the prisoners were originally held do not have enough space to hold thousands of prisoners. This is the truth. The base space is only so big. The inner city is already full. Although the outer city has a lot of space, there is no time to build a place to hold prisoners. If the prisoners and residents are directly put together, what else can be done? It's better to release it directly. Luo Ren touched his chin and thought for a moment, then looked to the right of the city, and then jumped onto the city wall. This made the prisoners stunned and exclaimed, is this base commander Luo Ren a martial arts master? The city wall is 4 to 5 meters high. I jumped on it immediately. Point on the city wall. Luo Ren looked outside the city. There were no puddles, rivers or anything like that. A small outer city could be planned here. To hold these prisoners, he immediately called up the light screen and planned an outer city with a length of 500 meters and a width of 500 meters against the right city wall, and then connected it to the main city. After planning, Luo Ren confirmed the construction without hesitation. After a burst of white light, people in the city saw that a section of the city wall had disappeared. Looking inside, there was actually a larger space. The residents were already not surprised, and the prisoners were dumbfounded. After Luo Ren jumped off the city wall, everyone looked at monsters or gods. Luo Ren ignored him and said to Luo Shan, go and find Komu to build a wall here. These prisoners will be detained here. By the way, we will arrange for someone to be on duty every day, and then we will get some materials and tools for them to build their own shelter. Yes. Luo Shan responded. Luo Ren said, also, let the brothers have a good rest these 2 days. We will set off to attack Hacheng in 3 days. Luo Shan Dao, yes. After a hard fight, the time came from early evening to late night. In the mobile base, there are a bunch of evolutionary crystals on the table in front of Luo Ren. One of the quasi level 2 evolutionary crystals that glows green like emerald is the most eye-catching, while the others are milky white level 1 evolutionary crystals. Carefully counting, there are 27 pieces in total. Level 1 evolutionary crystals can only replenish physical strength for Luo Ren now. If he is cautious and keeps them for himself, it would be a pure waste. Therefore, He has already thought of dividing the 27 evolutionary crystals equally among Luo Shan, Luo Hei, and Luo Hei, Luo Jirali and Suan Tong. He didn't know why he included Suan Tong. It might be because she had already eaten 2 evolutionary crystals, and taking a few more would be able to reach higher heights. In fact, there was an uncontrollable thought in his heart, which was to give Suan Tong the power to protect herself. Luo Ren smiled bitterly and shook his head. He calmed down and stopped thinking about this. Instead, he turned his attention to the quasi level 2 evolutionary crystal with a faint green light. The system said that, as long as he takes another quasi level 2 evolutionary crystal, he can break through to the level of a level 2 evolver. I wonder how strong a level 2 evolver will be. His eyes became hotter and hotter. The quasi level 2 evolutionary crystal in front of him was like the most beautiful woman in the world taking off her clothes and standing in front of him, making him unable to look away. The desire for power in his heart made him breathe. Aggravated point call. Suppressing the restlessness in his heart, he picked up the evolution crystal that glowed with green light and rushed out of the door. He flew to the river. Reason still told him that he could not evolve in the mobile base. The smell was too strong. I have to sleep there. Point hiss. He faced the bright moon, his eyes slowly closed, and then he took a deep breath. The cold wind of late autumn blew his clothes and hair, but it couldn't blow away the heat from his body. He only wore the clothes on his upper body. Wearing a short-sleeved shirt and a pair of large trousers, he didn't feel any chill from the cold air in such a cool outfit. He even felt hot all over. Slowly opening his eyes, he lowered his head and saw the green light evolutionary crystal in his hand. The heat in his body rose a few points. He finally couldn't help it and took this beautiful emerald-like evolutionary crystal without any hesitation. Put it into the mouth. The first few steps were the same. The entrance to the evolutionary crystal turned into liquid and flowed into the abdomen. After 3 seconds, the huge power suddenly burst out. Based on past experience, Luo Ren gritted his teeth and waited for the severe pain to occur. However, there was no. Instead, as his abilities exploded, he felt that his body was undergoing strange changes, and he felt quite comfortable. If there was anyone next to him, he would be extremely surprised. Luo Ren's skin was covered with a layer of faint white light. Under that white light, every inch of his skin was changing. As time went by, he actually began to shed his skin, dying layer by layer. The skin peels off, revealing new skin that looks very white and tender. 2 minutes passed, the white light gradually faded away, and all the dead skin peeled off. Luo Ren's skin now looked as white and tender as a newborn baby. Luo Ren also felt that the energy of the evolution crystal had been exhausted, and evolution had stopped. He took the first step to smell the smell, and it didn't stink. When he raised his arm, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. It's so white. Unable to resist touching it, Luo Ren's expression instantly froze, and then he frowned. It looks smooth and tender, but it feels rougher than before. Fortunately, my appearance hasn't changed much, and it hasn't affected my handsomeness. Luo Ren saw his reflection in the water through the moonlight, and couldn't help but said narcissistically. After feeling narcissistic, he took out a prepared knife, and without hesitation slashed his arm. Stab it. The sharp blade passed through his arm, leaving only a through hole. There are white knife marks with very light blood stains, and the hardness is almost the same as that of ordinary stone. After the skin hardness test, he tested his strength and speed, both of which were greatly improved. If he faced the level 2 speed zombie again, Luo Ren would be sure to keep up with its speed, and with his overwhelming power strength overcomes it. Luo Ren raised the corners of his mouth, looked at his hands, and said, "Is this the level 2 evolver?" Chapter 88 Double Standard. Luo Ren. The next day, early in the morning. Luo Ren ordered people to call Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji, Luo Li and Suan Tong early in the morning. Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji and Luo Li stood straight and looked forward. They did not guess why Luo Ren called them here, but just waited for Luo Ren's order. Suan Tong was puzzled. Why did they call these 5 people here so early in the morning? They hadn't even had breakfast yet. Their stomachs would protest in a while. Just as she was wondering, Luo Ren came out of the room carrying 5 black cloth bags. Seeing the 5 people, he smiled and said, "Come on, sit down." The 5 people looked over. Luo Shan and Luo Hei did not notice any changes. They just found stools and sat down. Su Antong, as a woman, was much more careful than a man. She noticed that Luo Ren had become whiter at the first time. She covered her mouth and said in surprise, "Brother Ren, why did you suddenly become so white? You don't have vitiligo, do you?" Luo Ren did not just become white, but several kinds of white. He was whiter than Su Antong. No wonder she was so surprised. Regardless of this, Luo Ren put the 5 bags on the table, clapped his hands, and then said with his hands on his hips, "I called you here early in the morning, nothing else. Although we suffered heavy losses in the battle of the town, we also killed many zombies, including evolution zombies, a total of 28, and got 28 evolution crystals. I ate one, and there are 27 left. I divided the remaining evolution crystals into 5 parts." Luo Ren pointed to the 5 bags of evolution crystals on the table and said, "Since it is an odd number and cannot be evenly distributed, there are 2 bags with 6 crystals and 3 bags with 5 crystals. I have disrupted the order. How many you can get depends on your luck." Su Antong was very moved when she heard that Luo Ren was going to give her evolution crystals, and at least 5 crystals. She knew the importance of evolution crystals very well. Luo Ren gave her 2 evolution crystals before to scare her, and then she was careless. She didn't expect her to be so courageous. But today, he gave them to her sincerely, which made Luo Ren's position in her heart more important. Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji and Luo Li were also very excited. With these evolution crystals, they would be able to become stronger. Luo Ren said, "Why are you all standing there? Who will take it first?" Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji and Luo Li looked at each other and then cast their eyes on Su Antong. This was a girl, so the 4 men had to be more gentlemanly. Su Antong waved her hand quickly and said, "I don't care. You go first. You are being polite to each other." Luo Ren said, "Come on, Antong, you pick first." Luo Ren had spoken, and Su Antong no longer refused. She didn't pick and choose, but picked a bag at random. Anyway, 1-5 and 1-6 didn't make much difference. Luo Ren then nodded at Luo Shan and the other 4. The 4 understood and sent Luo Shan to take all the remaining 4 bags on the table, and then each of the 4 took a bag. Whether they could get the extra bag depended on fate. A surprised voice came out of Su Antong's mouth, which attracted the attention of others. She had opened a bag and saw the evolution crystal inside. "What's wrong?" Luo Ren asked. Su Antong happily replied, "I have 6. Luo Ren looked at Luo Shan and the other 4 and smiled. "It seems that there is only one surprise left among you." The 4 UF men opened the bags in their hands without hesitation, and Luo Ji finally got the remaining surprise. The power was in front of them, and the 4 of them were a little impatient. They poured the evolution crystals into their palms and were about to take them all, but they were stopped by Luo Ren. Luo Ren said, "Don't do it here with me. It smelled for 3 days last time before the smell dissipated." The 4 of them scratched their heads embarrassingly and then asked, "Then where can we take it, sir?" Luo Ren said, "The dormitory, the riverside, as long as it is not seen by the residents." After hearing this, the 4 of them left one after another, and they were all eager to go back to increase their strength. Before they left, Luo Ren reminded them, there is a limit to how much the evolution crystal can enhance human fitness. The effective number of level 1 evolution crystals is 5 to 10 evolution crystals depending on individual physiques. If you feel that there is no improvement during the use, it means that the level 1 evolution crystals have no strengthening effect on your body and you don't need to take them anymore. We remember that. Luo Shan and the other 4 said in unison, and then left the mobile base. Su Antong saw Luo Shan and his men withdraw, and she also asked to leave, but Luo Ren smiled and said, "Antong, where are you going to take these evolution crystals?" Su Antong casually said, "Didn't you say that? The dormitory, the riverside, any place where residents can't see it will be fine." Luo Ren smiled and said, "I remember you live in a residential area. There are a lot of people there. If you take evolution crystals there, the smell will spread and will probably attract the neighbors upstairs and downstairs immediately. And the riverside, remember last time? After being reminded, Suan-Tong immediately remembered the scene of the lotus emerging from the water last time, as well as the background eyes of those male residents, and some people's nosebleeds sprayed far away. She couldn't help but blush, bit her lower lip, and thought about it, but couldn't think of a suitable place to take evolution crystals. At this time, Luo Ren smiled and said, "Isn't it just to find a safe place that will not be discovered by residents? It's simple, I'll find a place for you." Suan-Tong asked, "Where?" Luo Ren pointed at the ground, and then at the ceiling. Suan-Tong didn't have to think about the meaning. Luo Ren said that the place he was looking for was a mobile base, but didn't he just say that he wouldn't be in a mobile base? "Why are you here again now?" This made Suan-Tong very confused, and couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you say you can't be here?" Luo Ren looked at the ceiling, pinched his thumb, and kept shaking his right leg, and said, "I told Luo Shan and the others." As soon as these words came out, Suan-Tong's pretty face turned red, and she immediately began to think wildly in her mind. "I just told Luo Shan and the others, didn't you tell me? That means I can take the evolutionary crystals here. But why did Brother Ren do this? What was his purpose in not giving Luo Shan and the others?" Luo Shan and the others? By the way, they are men, so naturally they are nothing to look at. Huh, stinking hooligans. Damn it, you gave me the evolution crystal for this purpose. It's so boring. Suan-Tong immediately became angry, and was about to smash the evolutionary crystal in Luo Ren's face, and then scolded him, "Scoundrel." But then she thought, no, in my impression Brother Ren is not such a person. It is absolutely impossible to spend 6 evolution crystals just to peek at me. Thinking like this, she took a closer look at the evolution crystal in the bag. It was indeed correct, so she confirmed that Luo Ren's purpose was not to peek at herself. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel guilty. Brother Ren should just be watching. It's because I didn't have a good place to take evolution crystals that allowed me to evolve in the mobile base. I still miss him like that. Suddenly, Suan-Tong said to Luo Ren with guilt and emotion on her face, "I'm sorry, Brother Ren, I wrongly blamed you." Luo Ren was confused. "What the hell? Why did you blame me when you were fine just now?" Although he couldn't figure out why Suan-Tong suddenly apologized, Luo Ren still said magnanimously, "It's okay." After saying that, he stood up and walked out of the mobile base. When he closed the door, he said, "I will temporarily lend you my place. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 89 Expanding the Base. Luo Ren did not leave after he went out, but waited outside the mobile base. After a while, he heard Suan-Tong's uncontrollable scream of pain from inside the mobile base. However, it was quickly suppressed. Luo Ren could not help but admire that a girl could have such a strong ability to endure pain. Although Suan-Tong's scream only lasted a few seconds, it was still heard by the soldiers on guard and the residents passing by. The soldiers on guard were fine, but the residents passing by stopped and looked towards the mobile base and discussed, "Leo Wang, did I hear it wrong just now? There was a woman screaming in the commander's mobile base." "You heard it right, Leoli. I heard it too. It was a woman's scream, and it sounded particularly painful. Why? Are you so curious? Is it the reincarnation of Teletubbies?" Luo Ren looked at the soldiers on guard and ordered, "Disperse them all." Yes. The soldiers on guard stepped forward and shouted, "Hurry up and work, don't stand around here." The residents naturally knew that it was Luo Ren's intention to drive people away. Since the commander had spoken, they didn't want to be bored. They chatted with the people next to them for a few words and left. 2 hours later, click, the door of the mobile base finally opened. The stench that was expected was not there. Instead, there was a strange smell of perfume. Suan-Tong, with a slightly blushing face, appeared in front of Luo Ren. Luo Ren, who was originally complaining about why it took so long, was stunned at this moment. Suan-Tong was wearing a sweater on her upper body and sports shorts on her lower body. Her temperament was already excellent, and she was even more beautiful. If he had to describe her in words, Luo Ren could only think of, she is so beautiful, that she is stunning and graceful. Because she was so beautiful, even the soldiers on guard couldn't help but look at her sideways. Brother Ren, what's wrong with you? Suan Tong suddenly asked. This voice sounded very beautiful to Luo Ren. He thought to himself, how come this voice has become even more beautiful? After standing there for a few seconds, Luo Ren hurried into the mobile base and closed the door with a bang. Such an action started Suan Tong. Her heart was beating fast, and as Luo Ren approached step by step, her whole body began to feel hot, and her eyes closed involuntarily, without any intention of rejection or resistance, just waiting. However, she was obviously wrong. Luo Ren did not take the next step, but walked directly past her into the room. Feeling the breeze blowing by her side, it was obvious that someone was walking over. Suan Tong opened her eyes, turned her head and looked. Disappointment flashed across her eyes. After searching for a long time, Luo Ren came out of the room with a baseball cap in his hand. He returned to Suan Tong and handed the baseball cap to her, saying, "Put on the cap when you leave. It's better to wrap it tightly, otherwise I'm afraid some LSPs will be excited." "Oh." Suan Tong responded, took the cap, still a little unwilling, and immediately asked, "Brother Ren, do you think I'm beautiful?" Ahem. Luo Ren coughed a few times, then pulled Suan Tong to the mirror, pointed at her in the mirror and asked, "Do you think I can be beautiful, Su?" And Tong had naturally seen it. To be honest, she was shocked at first sight. She felt that, if she were a man, she would definitely like herself now, and she would be willing to be a licking dog, rubbing her face. Suan Tong said very versatile, "No, I think it's average." As she said that, she put on the cap and pressed the duckbill down. Luo Ren was speechless. The next day, morning point on the city wall, Luo Ren stood tall and looked around. He was going to attack Hucheng the day after tomorrow, which made him look worried. He was not worried about not being able to capture Hucheng, but worried that the existing base would not be able to accommodate the population of Hucheng after transporting them to the base point. Although there was still a lot of living space in the outer city, he didn't know how many people there were in Hucheng. If he guessed by the number of soldiers, the minimum number of people in an army of 10,000 people would be 50,000 or more. With such a huge population, the remaining living space was obviously not enough. After thinking about it, he decided to expand the base. He immediately called up the virtual map, drew a square with a length and width of 4 kilometers to trap the existing city, and then chose to build. After the white light, a long city wall emerged. Looking at the city wall, Luo Ren thought, although the area around the base has been cleaned up, the risk factor is not high, but it is better to clean it up again. Jumping down the city wall and coming to the barracks, he saw many guards training. Clearing his throat, Luo Ren shouted, "Assemble." As soon as this was said, the guards, whether they were training or not, immediately put down their work and assembled quickly, and did not forget to remind their comrades around them. In terms of military quality, the guards showed absolute professionalism. The team of thousands of people quickly assembled and lined up very neatly. At the same time, when the team was lined up neatly, 4 figures rushed over and stopped in front of Luo Ren. Luo Ren looked at the 4 people. They were Luo Shan, Luo Hei, Luo Ji and Luo Li, who had already evolved. The temperament of the 4 people was obviously different from that of the guards who had not eaten the evolution crystal. When they were still, they were like leopards hiding in the dark and waiting for an opportunity to move. When they moved, they were like tigers roaring and attacking with a deadly blow. The physical fitness of the 4 people has been greatly improved, and the senses of the 4 people have also been greatly improved. They can feel how powerful they are at this time. Even if they are quasi level 2 evolved zombies, they have the power to fight. But when facing Luo Ren's at this time, they could not develop any confidence to overcome. This is not because Luo Ren is the master of the base, and they are 100% loyal to Luo Ren, but because they feel that Luo Ren's strength is really terrifying. To describe it this way, if they are leopards, then Luo Ren is the tiger, the king of beasts. The difference in strength is obvious. How many evolutionary crystals have you taken? Have you reached the limit? Luo Ren asked. Luo Ji took a step forward and replied, "Sir, I have taken all 6 evolution crystals." The first 5 crystals are all effective, and the 6th crystal only has the effect of replenishing physical strength as you said, Luo. Ren nodded and said, it seems that your limit is 7 evolution crystals. The reason why it is you, and not you is, because all the guards are biochemical humans produced by the arsenal. Their physiques are naturally the same, and their limits are naturally the same. Aha. Another figure flashed by, and Suan Tong appeared in front of everyone. Her combat uniform matched her excellent temperament. She was so heroic and heroic. Luo Ren's heart was beating loudly when he saw it, and he thought to himself, oh my god, this is what it is. Me. Otherwise who can resist it? Although the guards have their own thinking ability, they are still biochemical people. They have absolute resistance to female sex. Seeing the charming Suan Tong, they are much calmer than Luo Ren. Chapter 90 Conditions for Level 4 Base. Why did you forget me again? Suan Tong looked at Luo Ren dissatisfied, with a hint of resentment in her tone. Haha, we are about to arrive here, and we haven't had time to inform you yet. Seeing this, Luo Shan, who was next to him, quickly explained to Luo Ren. Luo Ren said along the way, everyone has just gathered. I was about to ask someone to notify you, but I didn't expect you to come by yourself. In this case, there is no need, that's right. After hearing the explanation, Suan Tong relieved her dissatisfaction and immediately asked, are we gathering now to go to Hucheng? Didn't we say we would rest for 3 days? The expedition to Hu City is indeed scheduled for the day after tomorrow. I have summoned you today for other matters. Luo Ren said with a smile, just pack lightly, and come with me. After saying that, Luo Ren walked in front towards the city gate, and the soldiers of the guard army followed him neatly without asking. As the escort marched through the streets, they immediately attracted the attention of the residents, who all started talking about what the sir is going to do. Soon arriving at the city gate, Luo Ren ordered the city gate to be opened. More than 2,000 guards walked out of the city gate under his leadership. Suan Tong followed Luo Ren's footsteps. When they arrived outside the city, they saw the newly built. I'm not surprised why the city wall suddenly appeared, because it is already commonplace. I'm just a little curious. There is still a lot of living space in the existing city, so why are the city walls still being expanded? With these doubts, Suan Tong finally asked for everyone, is the Renge base going to be expanded again? Luo Ren nodded and said, yes, after Hu City is captured, I will move the population of Hu City to the base. Then Hu City can have an army of 10,000 people, and the number of residents must be at least 50,000. Although there are still many people left in the outer city, there is still not enough space, so we can only choose to expand. The purpose of calling you is to clean up this newly created space and remove all the hidden dangers above. Everyone immediately understood why Luo Ren summoned them. It turned out to be this. Looking at the new area, it was not very big. It would not take long for more than 2,000 people to clean it. No longer talking nonsense, Luo Ren immediately ordered, let's get started. The escorts were ordered to immediately start taking action in small groups, but Suan Tong remained motionless. Luo Ren looked at her and asked, you're already here, why don't we go together to eliminate the danger? Suan Tong stretched and said, there are so many people. It doesn't make much difference if there is one more than me and one less than me. I won't join in the fun. What she said was true. Luo Ren ignored her and immediately jumped onto the city wall, watching the guards spread out radially below. At this speed, it seemed that it really wouldn't take long. Suddenly, he looked up and saw that an iron tower was also included in the city wall. This made his eyes light up, and he jumped off the city wall and ran towards the iron tower. Seeing this, Suan Tong asked puzzledly, Brother Ren, what are you going to do? Curiosity drove her to follow him. 2 figures, one in front and one behind, ran fast and soon arrived under the iron tower. Luo Ren looked at the iron tower and was stunned. Suan Tong suddenly caught up from behind. He looked over involuntarily and asked, why are you following me? When Suan Tong saw that Luo Ren's target was actually an iron tower, her curiosity suddenly disappeared and she said, it's nothing. I thought you had found something good, Brother Ren, but I didn't expect it to be an iron tower. Dang dang. Luo Ren tapped the iron tower with his knuckles, making a crisp sound. He smiled and said, this is a good thing. Suan Tong asked in confusion. Isn't it just an abandoned signal tower? What good thing can it be? Brother Ren, do you plan to dismantle it and make weapons? She looked left and right but didn't realize how good and novel the iron tower was. The most useful thing was the steel, which would weigh dozens of tons if dismantled, and could be used to make a lot of firearms. But for Luo Ren, it seems that there is no need to use the iron to make guns, and dismantling this iron tower is a difficult task, and it may lead to human life. Although human life is not valuable now, it is a stranger she is talking about. I believe Luo Ren will let residents do such difficult technical work, so Suan Tong still can't guess what's so good about this thing in front of her. Luo Ren explained with a smile, although this iron tower is rusty on the surface, it can still be used as a signal tower, as long as it is properly repaired and powered on. When the time comes, we can find some technical talents in communications and we can build one mobile phone. I see. So, this iron tower is indeed a good thing. Suan Tong didn't know anything about communications. She just thought Luo Ren's idea was very good, and she also agreed with it. If a mobile phone could really be developed, it would be really convenient. But she didn't know if any of the tens of thousands of people in the base had this knowledge. Talent point. While the two of them were talking, the radiation cleanup of the escort army had also arrived here. Judging from the situation, it would be completed in less than half an hour. Clang. Slapping the iron tower, Luo Ren said, "You have to do things quickly. Let's go back and recruit some communications talents." Returning to the city, Luo Ren found Saudi Arabia and handed over the matter of recruiting communication technology talents to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's method of recruiting talents is very simple. They directly publish notices. It doesn't take long for talents with research in communications to be brought to Luo Ren by Saudi Arabia. 3 people came with Saudi Arabia, all of them men. 2 of them didn't have very thick hair, and one of them also had such a crisis. Luo Ren was a little doubtful whether Saudi Arabia chose people based on their hair. The chief is the spiritual leader of all residents. The 3 were so excited when they saw Luo Ren that they were speechless for a moment. Sud introduced them. They are Deng Gang, Hu Yi, and Xiaojing. These 3 are communication technicians. Luo Ren nodded and asked, "I don't understand communication either. Let me ask you, if there is a tower signal that has not been powered for more than half a year in front of you, are you sure you can use it? And after using it, I want you to design a set of signal waves that can be used for internal communication in our base." After hearing this, the 3 people looked embarrassed at the same time. Obviously, this is a big problem. After a few seconds of silence, the one called Deng Gang said, "Commander, what you said is indeed very difficult, and the conditions of the base in terms of communication are limited. After Deng Gang finished speaking, the other 2 nodded in agreement. Luo Ren frowned. It seems that it is very difficult to build internal communications. I wonder if the base will unlock communication equipment or talents after it is upgraded to level 3. By the way, I don't know how many people are needed to upgrade to level 3. Thinking of this, Luo Ren asked in his heart, "System, how many people are needed to upgrade the base to level 3? Upgrading the base to level 4 requires 500,000 people. 500,000? Luo Ren was shocked by this number. Population is not points. 500,000 people is still very difficult. The base now has less than 60,000 people. Even if it goes to Haching the day after tomorrow and successfully breaks through Haching and obtains the population of Haching, it is estimated that it can reach more than 100,000. But this is still a big gap compared to 500,000. Luo Ren sighed, looked at the 3 people, and said, "Okay, you 3 go down." After the 3 left, Luo Ren looked at Saudi Arabia again and said, "You go and get busy too. Pay more attention to communication talents in the future. If you find them, ask me again about the paragraph I just said. If you can do it, bring them to me. If you can't, don't use them." Chapter 91, Conquering Haching. Time passed in a hurry, and it was 2 days later. The number of escorts was finally restored to 3,000, and all previously damaged vehicles had been repaired. The same scene as 3 days ago. 2,000 escorts, dozens of troop transport trucks, dozens of troop transport armored vehicles, and 9 tanks gathered outside the city. Set off. Luo Ren gave the order and the team set off in great force. The vehicle was driving on a familiar road. After about 50 minutes, the speed of the vehicle gradually slowed down. On the off-road vehicle, Luo Ren was closing his eyes to rest, while Su Andan was watching Luo Ren from the side, wondering what he was thinking about. Suddenly, Luo Shan's voice came from the intercom in the car. "I'm Luo Shan. I'm Luo Shan. Sir, there is a small town 2 kilometers ahead. Please decide whether we should go straight through the small town, or take a detour." Luo Ren opened his eyes slowly, and Su Antang also retracted her eyes at this moment. After thinking for a while, Luo Ren said, "Let's take a detour." Although he has reached the level of a level 2 evolver, if he faces that level 2 zombie again, it is completely possible to be 100% undefeated, not to mention 100% victorious. Moreover, Luoshan Luohei and the others have all reached the pinnacle of level 1 evolutionaries, and can be invincible even against quasi level 2 zombies. Therefore, he is fully confident in annihilating the zombies in the town in one fell swoop. However, things came first. The main purpose of this expedition was to attack Hu City. There was no need to provoke the zombies in the town and cause unnecessary losses. It would not be too late to turn around and deal with those zombies after Hu City was conquered. Luo Shan responded, "Roger it." The speed of the car increased again, and when we reached the fork in the road, we decisively chose to bypass the town. Hu City. The city lord's mansion. Hu Shan's face was as gloomy as the dark clouds in the sky, and the anger in his eyes was as horrifying as lightning. Chen Hui and a group of officers stood on both sides of the hall, and did not dare to speak. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The sound of fingers tapping on the armrests of the chair was very rhythmic. Every sound that fell into the ears of Chen Hui and other officers made their hearts beat. Report. Suddenly, a small soldier quickly ran into the lobby, knelt down on one knee with a plop, clasped his hands in his fists, and said, "Report to the lord of the city that Mr. Xiao Zhenking has arrived." Hu Shan's eyes flashed, his face suddenly lit up, and he smiled brightly. "Please come quickly." After a while, a man with a height of 1.75 meters, neither thin nor fat, and a round face walked into the lobby under the leadership of Xiao Bing. Hu Shan immediately stepped down from the city lord's throne to greet him. He took Xiao Zhenking's hand and said with a smile, "Long time no see, brother Xiao." Xiao Zhenking, the round-faced man, was also smiling and said, "Yes, brother Hu, we must have not seen each other for more than a month. Ha ha ha. Yes, yes, come on, please sit down." Hu Xiangxiu pulled Xiao Zhenking to the left side closest to the city lord's throne and asked him to sit down here. Chen Hui and other officers were all standing, but Xiao Zhenking not only had a place to sit, but also had the most respected position besides the city leader's seat. This shows how much Hu Shan values this person. Hu Shan sat back on the city lord's throne, clapped his hands with a smile, and saw 2 beauties in sexy clothes coming up with tea and fruit respectively. Xiao Zhenking saw 2 beauties coming towards him, and sneered in his heart, "Beauty trap." The 2 beauties put the tea and fruit on the table to the right of Xiao Zhenking, and at the same time, blinked at Xiao Zhenking charmingly. Seeing that Xiao Zhenking ignored him, one of them poured the tea and said softly, "If you eat this fruit, you will lose 1. The city lord is not willing to eat it, and today in order to entertain Mr. Xiao, the city lord took it out specially, which shows that the city lord attaches great importance to Mr. Xiao. In this situation, it would be nice to have a full meal. This fruit is indeed a rare thing. When Xiao Zhenking heard this, he did not look at the fruit, but at the woman who was speaking. Her eyes were like a pool of autumn water, her mouth was like a small cherry, her slim waist seemed to be held by one hand, and her slender white legs were even more beautiful. It can arouse the fire in the hearts of most men. It also aroused the evil fire in Xiao Zhenking's heart, but business matters were more important. He suppressed the evil fire and looked back at Hu Shan, only to see Hu Shan looking at him with a smile. Xiao Zhenking said, "Brother Hu's warm hospitality is accepted with all my heart. Let's get down to business first." Hu Xiandao, okay, let's get down to business. I have described the matter clearly in the letter. I guess brother Xiao should be very clear about my needs. Xiao Zhenking nodded and said, yes, I understand everything. I didn't expect that there were tanks in that base. They were really well hidden. Brother Hu, you were indeed defeated unjustly. As for your request for our wasteland kingdom, to send troops to destroy the base, this is too risky, and we cannot agree to it. However, we can agree to protect your safety, and try our best to protect the safety of Hu City. Hu Shan was a little disappointed when he heard that he could not send troops, but when he heard that Hu City could be protected, he breathed a sigh of relief. As the saying goes, if you keep the Green Mountains, you will not be afraid of running out of firewood. He smiled and said, thank you so much to the Kingdom of Wasteland and Brother Xiao. Zhenking waved his hand and said, Brother Hu, please thank me, after you listen to our conditions first. Hu Shan said seriously, what are the conditions? Xiao Zhenking said, our conditions are very simple, that is, from now on Hu City will be Hu City of the Wasteland Kingdom, the soldiers of Hu City will be the soldiers of the Wasteland Kingdom, and the residents of Hu City will also be the residents of our Wasteland Kingdom. As soon as these words came out, the hall was in an uproar, and all the officers were talking about it. Some were unwilling to fight to the death, and some chose to live quietly. Hu Shan's face was solemn. Although he said it in 3 steps, there was only one actual request, that is, Hu Cheng surrendered to the Wasteland Kingdom, and obeyed the orders of the Wasteland Kingdom in all matters. Is this the only requirement? Hu Shan asked unwillingly. After all, Hu City was founded by him, and he could do whatever he wanted in Hu City, and everything had to be obeyed by him. But once he is merged into the Wasteland Kingdom, he will have to obey the arrangements of the Wasteland Kingdom. Not to mention that he can no longer do whatever he wants, and may even be deposed as the city lord of Hu City. No, he will definitely be deposed as a city lord, because no force is willing to do so. Let the ruler of the city under you be someone who is not loyal to you. Xiao Zhenking picked up the teacup, blew away the rising water vapor, took a sip, and said as if unintentionally, when I came, the vehicles drove through the streets of Hucheng, but the scene was a little different from the last time I came. It seemed that there were soldiers. The number has become smaller. Hu Shan's face changed greatly when he heard this, but Xiao Zhenking was not ready to shut up, and continued, oh, by the way, speaking of City Lord Hu Shan, the 3 cannons you borrowed from us have not been returned yet. We only rented them to you, but if I don't sell it to you, the few supplies you have, let alone 3 cannons, are not enough, even if you buy 3 cannons. Now the lease period has already expired, right? When does City Lord Hu plan to return it? If we don't return it, our Wasteland Kingdom will be not very friendly to those who break their trust. Xiao Zhenking's title changed from Brother Hu to City Lord Hu Shan. Although there was only a difference of 3 words, the meaning changed a lot. It was no longer a good discussion, but a hint of threat. After Xiao Zhenking finished speaking, he stared at Hu Shan with a smile, waiting for his answer. Chapter 92, Conquering Hucheng, Part 2. Hu Shan naturally heard the meaning of Xiao Zhenking's words. The letter of help he wrote to the Wasteland Kingdom made it very clear. Now that Xiao Zhenking mentioned the matter of the 3 cannons, he was simply asking why the cannons were not returned as scheduled. Didn't he know? It was obvious that he knew, but he still said this, emphasizing the 4 words not very friendly, which was like a heavy punch hitting Hu Shan's heart. The meaning is nothing more than, if you, Hu Shan, don't surrender to the Wasteland Kingdom, just wait and see. Hu Shan held the armrests of the chair tightly with both hands. Because he used too much force, his palms were red and the veins on his arms were highlighted. Then I heard the discussions of many officers. Most of them felt that they should compromise and surrender to the Wasteland Kingdom. After all, nothing was more important than survival. He couldn't help but look at Chen Hui and saw that Chen Hui didn't comment, just lowered his head, not knowing what he was thinking. However, seeing the change in Hu Shan's face and the delay in answering, Xiao Zhenking continued, as long as City Lord Hu agrees to our conditions, then everyone will be our own from now on, and the 3 cannons will be treated as a gift. Naturally, we won't pursue it. Well, after a long silence, a helpless sigh spread throughout the lobby, and many officers stopped talking. They turned their attention to Hu Shan, waiting for his upcoming decision. Xiao Zhenking still looked at Hu Shan with a smile, waiting for him to speak out his final decision. Hu Shan's eyes swept across in the lobby, and finally everyone fell on Xiao Zhenking's face. He stood up, bowed slightly and said, "Brother Xiao, from now on, Hu City is willing to surrender to the Wasteland Kingdom." As his words fell, other officers also learned to bow slightly towards Xiao Zhenking and expressed their opinions one after another. "I, Li Shu, am willing to surrender to the Wasteland Kingdom. I, Zhang Di, am willing to surrender to the Wasteland Kingdom. I, Chen Hui, am willing to surrender to the Wasteland Kingdom." Ha ha ha. Xiao Zhenking laughed loudly, stood up suddenly, and said, Okay. Now that Hu City has surrendered to my Wasteland Kingdom, we will be a family from now on, and our Wasteland Kingdom will definitely protect everyone. Thank you, Mr. Xiao. Thank you, Wasteland Kingdom. Many officers said with flattering faces. The performance of these people was seen by Hu Shan. He had just announced his surrender, and started to flatter him. If he was still allowed to be the Lord of Hu City, he would definitely throw these scoundrels into the wild to feed the zombies as soon as possible. After the joy, Xiao Zhenking said, "Brother Hu, please pack up and leave for Sanctuary City number 3 immediately. The goal has been achieved," and Xiao Zhenking returned to calling Hu Shan Brother Hu. But what he said made Hu Shan frown and asked, "Brother Xiao, why do we go to Wasteland Sanctuary City number 3? He asked like this, but he was thinking in his heart, could it be that, as soon as I surrender, I will be deposed as a city lord and imprisoned in Sanctuary City number 3? This Wasteland Kingdom would be too much. Although he didn't say it out loud, how could Xiao Zhenking not guess what Hu Shan was thinking, and immediately explained, "Our intelligence personnel have detected that the base guards gathered early in the morning, and the purpose is very clear to be Hu City. It is estimated that they are already far away at this time. Halfway through, the army will arrive at the city in more than 2 hours. Hu City's current military strength is completely unable to resist, so for the safety of you and your men, please go to Sanctuary City number 3 immediately." Hu Shan was shocked when he heard that the escort army would arrive at the city in more than an hour. At the same time, he praised the Wasteland Kingdom for its cautiousness. He wrote a letter 3 days ago and just sent Xiao Zhenking here today. It turned out that he was going to deploy people. Went to the surveillance base point at this point. It is indeed not suitable to stay in Hu City, otherwise it will be a dead end. Hu Shan immediately nodded and agreed. Okay. After leading a group of officers and Xiao Zhenking out of the city lord's palace, Hu Shan immediately issued an order to mobilize vehicles and fuel in the city, and he and a group of officers quickly boarded the vehicles. The city gate was wide open. Hu Shan boarded the Hummer and looked out the window. He saw Xiao Zhenking explaining something to the two of them in a low voice. Then he patted the two on the shoulders and said with a smile, "Remember, safety comes first, you guys. We must protect City Lord Hu's safety." When Hu Shan heard what he meant, it seemed that Xiao Zhenking did not intend to go to Sanctuary City number 3 with them, so he couldn't help but ask, "Brother Xiao, aren't you going with us?" Xiao Zhenking smiled and said, "Hu City currently belongs to the Wasteland Kingdom. Naturally, I have to try my best to protect Hu City. The few people I have arranged will take you to Sanctuary City number 3. Go ahead." Hu Shan Dao, there are currently less than 5,000 troops in the city. Luo Ren's escort is very powerful. Such a small force cannot resist it. Brother Xiao, if you stay, you will die. Hurry up and get in the car with us on the 3rd. Sanctuary City. It won't be too late to report to the kingdom and send an army to take back Hu City. Xiao Zhenking said calmly, "I have my own way to deal with Luo Ren. Brother Hu, just don't worry. What on earth is this Xiao Zhenking trying to do?" Hu Shan thought hard and was suddenly startled. Could it be that he was lying to me? Luo Ren didn't come to attack Hu City today and let us go to Sanctuary City number 3 just to imprison him. Then he and his people will take over Hu City. However, he soon felt relieved. Hu City and the base were already fighting to the death. Even if Luo Ren didn't come today, he would come tomorrow. If he didn't come tomorrow, he would come one day. If he wanted the Wasteland Kingdom to send troops to protect Hu City. Then he, Hushan, must step down from the position of city lord. Otherwise why would the Wasteland Kingdom send troops? And if this is the case, then he has nothing to care about, because what he cares about is not the position of the city lord, but the power of the city lord, and what these powers can enjoy. Hushan sighed. Anyway, it would be a matter of time for the base to attack the city. If he did not agree to the conditions of the Wasteland Kingdom, the Wasteland Kingdom would also make a fuss about the 3 cannons. Since he has chosen to surrender, then just follow the arrangement. As usual, if you want to keep the Green Hills, you won't have to worry about having no firewood. You have to live first, before you have a chance. Hushan stuck his head out of the window and shouted, Chen Hui, Chen Hui, who was in the vehicle behind him, immediately got out of the car after hearing this, and ran over quickly, saying, City Lord, please look for me. You stay to assist Mr. Xiao. Hushan said to Chen Hui, then looked at Xiao Zhenking and said, Brother Xiao, I guess you are not very clear about the affairs in the city. I asked Chen Hui to stay and assist you. You see how about it, this? Hushan. Xiao Zhenking was disdainful, but still had a smile on his face and said, okay, then let's stay. Chen Hui was unwilling to do so and said anxiously, my lord, city lord, he heard clearly about the escort army's attack on the city today, and it was clear that, if he was allowed to stay, wouldn't he be risking his own death? At this moment, he felt very aggrieved. Didn't he do enough for Hushan? Why was he the one who died and not others? His fists clenched involuntarily, and his anger was about to burst out, but Hushan didn't pay any attention to him, but interrupted him and said, do it well. Hushan just said this, and ordered to set off, leaving behind Chen Hui who was trembling with suppressed anger. When Xiao Zhenking saw Chen Hui, his eyes flashed. He couldn't guess what Hushan meant by leaving Chen Hui. It was just to place someone's hand beside him, and make plans for the future. It was a pity. He was afraid he wouldn't use it arrive. Thinking of this, Xiao Zhenking smiled, and thought to himself, Hushan actually believed a few lies. It's much easier than imagined. When the eldest brother's army arrives, Hu City will have more than 4,000 troops and tens of thousands. The entire population belongs to my sanctuary city number 3. As for Hushan and your men, Xiao Zhenking's eyes flashed with cold murderous intent, and he sneered in his heart. Haha. Returning to the city lord's mansion, Xiao Zhenking sat on Hushan's city lord's throne. There was no one in the lobby at this time, and it was really boring. Xiao Zhenking picked up a teacup, looked at it carefully, and then twisted his neck, and made a clicking sound. At this moment, he suddenly thought of the woman who had poured him tea, and his heart began to heat up. He couldn't control the strength in his hand, and with a click, the ceramic teacup was crushed to pieces by him. He looked at a door on the right. He clearly remembered that the woman entered the lobby through this door. The heat in his heart made him unbearable, so he stood up and walked towards that door. Entering the door, there was a courtyard. His ears moved, and he heard the woman's laughter. He felt happy and looked up. He came to the door of a house, where the sound came from. Bang! Kicking the door open, the woman's laughter immediately disappeared. Xiao Zhenking saw 2 women in the room. One of them was the one who was serving tea and water. He licked his lips, and a ball of evil fire was blazing in his abdomen. Burn up! The 2 women were startled at first. Once they could see clearly who was coming, they immediately put on charming smiles, and greeted them politely. Chapter 93, Conquering Haching, Part 3. After more than 2 hours of driving, we finally saw the city of Hu City as far as the eye could see. Hu City covers a large area, but the city wall is not strong. It is similar to the kind of wall in an ordinary factory park. It is even worse in some places. It is completely incomparable with the city wall of the base. There are many fields scattered outside Haching. It is now the late autumn, and various crops have been harvested. Therefore, these fields are covered with traces of harvest residues. However, the crops grown on them have been harvested. Only a few places still have a touch of green. Those are relatively cold-resistant green vegetables that have not yet been picked. Although the crops have been harvested, there are still many Haching residents picking carefully in these fields, as if they can dig out food from the soil. These Haching people are also malnourished and emaciated. Overall, it just looks better than Paradise City. Their waists were bent downward, their faces almost touching the ground, and they were rummaging carefully for possible food. However, even though it was like this, no one among them paid attention to the touch of green in that small area. The escort troops came to the city. When the people in the field saw it, they turned around and ran away with frightened expressions. To them, this was a strange army, an army with unknown intentions. Therefore, they have to stay far away. If the elders of this army are murderous, and they suddenly attack, it will be really bad luck. The vehicle stopped, the tank in front of it spread out, and the turret adjusted in preparation for battle. On the off-road vehicle, Luo Shan's voice came from the intercom. "I'm Luo Shan, sir. We have arrived in Hucheng. Is it finally here?" After opening the car door and getting out of the car, Luo Ren quickly came to the front of the team. He saw fear written all over the faces of the Hu City soldiers guarding the city, and their legs were shaking. After all, the enemy was attacking the city and there were still tanks. Anyone who sees them will be scared. Moreover, they have seen the power of these tanks, and the scene of their comrades being blown to pieces in front of their eyes is still vivid in their minds. Luo Ren took a loudspeaker and said, "If you don't want to die, open the city gate and surrender." The soldiers of the Hu City army looked at each other. They didn't know that Hu Xian had left the city, so they weighed in their hearts repeatedly between surrendering and not surrendering. If Hu Xian knew about opening the city gate to surrender, he would definitely die, but if he surrendered, Luo Ren might not let him go. It's really hard to choose. Luo Ren raised one hand and shouted, "I will count to 5. If you haven't decided after counting 5, then I will attack the city by force. 1, 2, 3." Every sound of a number was like a bomb exploding in the ears of the soldiers guarding Hu City. They were struggling and still unable to make a decision, but Luo Ren would not wait for them long. When the number 4 sounded, the air suddenly solidified, breathing suddenly paused, and everything in the world seemed to stop. Only the last finger of Luo Ren's hand was slowly clenching, and he saw that the entire palm of his hand was about to make a fist. Sudden, etc. An anxious voice reached Luo Ren's ears. When he heard the sound, he looked around and saw Chen Hui running all the way. He was panting after stopping. Luo Ren smiled, but his finger did not fall down in the end. Hu Xian, if you are unkind, don't blame me for being unjust. Today I just want the guts to destroy Hu City without any effort. Chen Hui thought viciously in his heart and then ordered, "Open the city gate." The soldier next to him thought he heard wrongly and looked at Chen Hui in surprise. Chen Hui kicked the soldier and shouted, "Look what I'm doing. Open the city gate quickly." The soldier knew that Chen Hui was the right-hand man of the city lord Hu Xian. Seeing how determined he was, he thought it was the city lord who ordered the surrender. He immediately opened the city gate without any hesitation. When the other soldiers saw this scene, they also consciously raised their guns. Raise it high, and then kneel down neatly in a row. It would be best not to attack by force. Luo Ren ordered, "Enter the city." 9. Tanks and 2,000 escorts entered Hu City without any hindrance. Luo Ren immediately ordered the collection of the firearms of the Hu City army. He came to Chen Hui and said, "Long time no see, Chen." Hui looked flattering and said, "Long time no see, sir." "Yes." Luo Ren nodded and said without any nonsense, "Take me to see Hu Xian." Chen Hui Dao, "Sir, Hu Xian is no longer in the city." "What do you mean?" Luo Ren asked confused. "He is not in the city, he escaped." "Then who gave the order to surrender?" "Chen." Hui smiled and said, "Sir, I'm the only officer of the Hu Cheng army in the city at this time. It is naturally my idea to surrender." "Oh." Luo Ren understood immediately, nodded knowingly, and said, "Well done." Luo Ren called Luo Shan, Luo He and Luo Gluoli, and said, "Luo He and Luo Gluoli, the 3 of you will each take 100 people to count the number of residents in the city. Luo Shan, you stay behind to take care of these prisoners." After the mission was assigned, Luo Ren looked at Su Antong and said, "Antong, take 50 people and follow me to the Lord's mansion in Hu City." He glanced at Chen Hui and said, "Lead the way, Chen." Hui was naturally willing. He walked forward with a smile and led the way. After a while, he arrived at the city lord's mansion. When the guards of the city lord's mansion saw the enemy, they immediately raised their guns, but were immediately scolded by Chen Hui, saying, "Bring it on, put the gun down." The guards hesitated for a while, and finally put down their guns, not only because Chen Hui was an officer, and had a higher rank than them, but more importantly, because the 50 men on the other side were well equipped and strong, and they simply couldn't beat them. Luo Ren ordered people to collect the firearms of the guards, and then left 10 people to guard him. He was about to enter the city lord's palace. At this time, Chen Hui stepped forward and blocked the door. Luo Ren looked at him doubtfully, with questioning eyes. "What do you mean, Chen Huadao, sir? Before I go in, I have to explain to you that Hushan has left, but now there is a character inside who is even more powerful than Hushan. This person is called Xiao Zhenqing, and he is the deputy of the Wasteland Kingdom's Sanctuary City number 3. City Lord. What Wasteland Kingdom? What Sanctuary City number 3? Luo Ren heard these two names for the first time, and couldn't help but ask. Chen Hui explained, this Wasteland Kingdom is a very large force. It is rumored that it was founded by the commander of the H-City Military Division. There are 4 Sanctuary Cities, namely Sanctuary City number 1, Sanctuary City number 2, and Sanctuary City number 3. Sanctuary City number 4 feet. The total strength of these Sanctuary Cities is tens of thousands, and the overall equipment is much better than that of the Hu City Army. Moreover, I heard that Sanctuary City number 1, which is the capital city of the Wasteland Kingdom, has more than 10 tanks, more artillery bazookas. Speaking of this, Chen Hui scratched his head in embarrassment and said, the cannons and rocket launchers used to attack the base were borrowed from the Wasteland Kingdom. With tens of thousands of troops and tanks, the Wasteland Kingdom is indeed a huge guy and deserves attention. I just don't know why Xiao Zhenqing, the deputy city lord of Sanctuary City number 3, is in Hu City. Could it be that Hushan has defected to the Wasteland Kingdom? Luo Ren asked. Why is Hushan not in the city lord's mansion, but this Xiao Zhenqing is in the city lord's mansion? Chen Huadao, Hushan has taken refuge in the Wasteland Kingdom. The current Hu City is supposed to be the territory of the Wasteland Kingdom. As for Hushan, he set out for Sanctuary City number 3. It has been an hour. To be honest, I don't know why Xiao Zhenqing stayed. There were only 4,000 troops left in Hu City, and he did not lead an army. Moreover, he knew that sir, you came to attack Hu City today, but he said that he had a way to deal with you. This I really can't figure out what he can do. Chapter 94 Wasteland Kingdom, Xiao Zhenqing. Knowing that the troops in the city were not strong enough to resist the escort, Xiao Zhenqing had the confidence to deal with him. This piqued Luo Ren's interest. He couldn't wait to meet Xiao Zhenqing, the deputy city lord of the so-called Queen's Sanctuary City in Wasteland Kingdom 3. After Chen Hui explained everything, he stopped blocking him and stepped aside. At the same time, he thought in his mind, my performance should be able to get a life. Walking into the city lord's palace, I came to the hall. There was no one in the hall at this time, but if I moved my ears, I could hear extremely passionate voices coming from the side door. The male voice was dull and ecstatic, and the female voice was charming and seductive. Luo Ren was not ignorant of the world. He is a child, and he also watches a lot of action and romance movies. Could he not recognize what this familiar voice is doing? Su Antong, who followed in, also heard the ecstatic voice. Her face suddenly turned red, and she cursed secretly. Shameless. Luo Ren looked at her, and said with a smile, I'm so shy. Snort. Su Antong's face turned red with embarrassment, and she turned away, and ignored Luo Ren. Luo Ren smiled and stopped teasing her. After hearing the sound, he left and came to a door. The sound inside was still going on, and the situation was getting more and more intense. Moreover, when he got closer and listened carefully, there were actually 2 voices from different women. Luo Ren couldn't help but touch his chin at the sound, thinking, good guy, he's really good at playing. He took out the pistol from his waist and fired 2 shots into the sky. Bang bang. The passionate sounds in the room suddenly stopped, followed by the sound of people getting dressed, and then an angry shout sounded. Who are you looking for death? When doing this kind of thing, anyone who is disturbed will become furious. Bang. Luo Ren didn't care about this, and kicked open the door. He saw a bright spring inside. One man and two women were disheveled. The two women seemed to have exhausted a lot of physical strength. They were lying on the bed panting, while the man his face was gloomy and his eyes were ferocious, staring at Luo Ren like a hungry wolf, his teeth grinding loudly. Hushan is not here, but if he can play like this, then this person should be Xiao Zhenking in Chen Huo's mouth. Luo Ren looked at the person in front of him calmly. Who are you? Xiao Zhenking saw a strange face, and the man's temperament did not look like that of an ordinary Hucheng soldier. He immediately suppressed the anger in his heart that was suddenly interrupted and asked. The kingdom of Wasteland is so powerful that Luo Ren doesn't want to antagonize it for the time being, but he still wants to see how Xiao Zhenking can deal with him, so he announces his identity and says, "Didn't you say you are sure of dealing with me? Why don't you even know what I look like? Don't you even know?" Xiao Zhenking frowned and thought carefully about the meaning of the man in front of him. He was suddenly startled and took a few steps back involuntarily. His face was full of surprise. He thought in his heart, "It's Luo Ren. He's really here." And the fact that he appears here now means that the escort has already invaded Hu City. I was just saying casually to deceive Hushan. This Luo Ren actually attacked Hu City today. What a coincidence. Xiao Zhenking was full of bitterness. What he said about arranging manpower to monitor the base and learning that Luo Ren sent troops to Hu City today was just a lie made up casually to deceive Hushan. But who would have thought that Luo Ren would actually send troops today? My heart is really more bitter than eating coptis. Putting away the anger in his heart, the gloom on his face dissipated, and he put on his signature smiling expression. As the saying goes, soldiers will stop you, and water will cover you. Since the plan cannot keep up with the changes, you can only make new plans according to the changes. Haha. Xiao Zhenking straightened his clothes, walked forward with a smile, and said, "It turns out to be Commander Luo Ren. I have been looking up to you for a long time. I'm the Deputy City Lord of Sanctuary City number 3 of the Wasteland Kingdom, Xiao Zhenking." He was the first to reveal his identity. If Luo Ren knew that the Wasteland Kingdom would be wary of him, he would gain the next initiative point. Seeing his smiling face, Luo Ren's first feeling was that there was a knife hidden in his smile. However, he was not a vegetarian. He also put on a smiling face and said, "Oh, it turns out to be Asylum number 3 of the Wasteland Kingdom. Xiao Zhenking, the Deputy City Lord of the city, has heard a little bit about it. Deputy City Lord Xiao is really capable. He actually appeared in Hu City and slept with Hushan's woman in the City Lord's palace. Of course, I don't care about this. What I'm most curious about is that Deputy City Lord Xiao said there is a way to deal with me and my escorts. I don't know what the way is." Xiao Zhenking looked past Luo Ren and saw that there was no one else behind him. He looked back at Luo Ren and saw that Luo Ren only had a pistol and a saber on his body. His heart suddenly froze. "Whatever I can do, I will let you. I know what the method is. As the saying goes, to capture the thief first, capture the king." His eyes suddenly became cold and stern. His 5 fingers bent into claws, and he quickly grabbed Luo Ren's neck. His speed was far faster than that of ordinary humans, and even compared to level 1 speed of old zombies. Unfortunately, Luo Ren has already reached the level of a level 2 evolver. This attack, which is extremely fast in the eyes of others, is seen as slow in Luo Ren's eyes. He easily dodged it by turning sideways, and then under Xiao Zhenking's incredible gaze, grabbed his wrist and squeezed it gently. Click, there was a crisp sound of bones breaking, and the severe pain caused Xiao Zhenking's face to twist and deform, and he couldn't help but squeeze out a few tears. "Ah, it hurts, it hurts. It's because I can't see Taishan. Sir Luo Ren, please spare my life." Xiao Zhenking kept shouting for mercy. He never thought that Luo Ren's personal strength would be so strong. At this time, he felt extremely regretful. He did something blindly for nothing. He was really seeking death. At this time, Xiao Zhenking's screams of pain had spread throughout the city lord's palace. Suan Tong and the escort soldiers who were waiting in the hall immediately rushed over and breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that Luo Ren was not injured. "Brother Ren, what's going on?" Suan Tong stepped forward and asked. Luo Ren smiled and said, "It's okay. This is Xiao Zhenking, the Deputy City Lord of Sanctuary City number 3 of the Wasteland Kingdom. We are having a friendly discussion. As he spoke, he let go of Xiao Zhenking's hand, and the force of the pull made Xiao Zhenking stumble back involuntarily. In the end, he lost his balance and fell onto his back with a plop. Seeing this funny scene, Suan Tong couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Xiao Zhenking quickly got up from the ground, turned his back to Luo Ren, took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and then turned around with a smile on his face. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Suan Tong. She was stunned and murmured, "Is this a fairy from heaven falling to earth?" Suan Tong frowned, feeling very uncomfortable being stared at by Xiao Zhenking's fiery eyes, so she couldn't help but move behind Luo Ren. Seeing this, Luo Ren couldn't help but feel an unknown fire in his heart. He stepped forward and kicked him with a clang, sending him flying and hitting the wall hard, scaring the two women in the room into screaming. And at the same time he cursed angrily, "You are watching, believe it or not, I dug out your eyes." After the kick, I had a thought in my mind and thought to myself, why am I so emotionally unstable all of a sudden? He has always considered himself a very rational person, and he has never experienced such an aimless anger before. But just now, Xiao Zhenking just stared at Suan Tong, but he couldn't help but have an aimless anger. This made him unable to understand why he was so angry. Chapter 95 Eyes like autumn water. Xiao Zhenking got up from the ground holding his stomach. Luo Ren's kick made his stomach turbulent, as if all his internal organs had been displaced. At this time, he still dared to stare at Suan Tong, like he did just now, just taking a peek. He quickly looked away, fearing that Luo Ren would get angry and kick him again. On the surface he was submissive, but in his heart he was roaring wildly. Luo Ren, who has been stabbed 1,000 times, dares to kick me. Just wait. I won't argue with you now. When I escape and return to Sanctuary City number 3, I must let my eldest brother send troops to destroy your base, and then get your woman in front of you. Such a beautiful woman can only belong to me. Luo Ren saw Xiao Zhenking's little moves and thought to himself, this guy is quite scheming and flexible, but he is better than people like Long Kai and Hu Shan. He was thinking about how to deal with Xiao Zhenking. If he killed him, he would definitely provoke the Wasteland Kingdom, which was a troublesome matter. After thinking about it, Luo Ren came to the final conclusion. It's better to take him into custody first, and then go explore the reality of this Wasteland Kingdom. Making plans. Luo Ren actually has only two plans. Killing or imprisoning him is the first plan, and the second plan is to let him go. If the strength of the Wasteland Kingdom is not something to be afraid of, then the first one is the first one. If the strength of the Wasteland Kingdom is really strong, in order not to cause unnecessary trouble, then let him go. If the Wasteland Kingdom is not satisfied with letting him go, then he can only beat him. Although there are only 3,000 guardsmen, there are tens of thousands of residents in the base. With the advantage of the system, Luo Ren is sure that all the people will be armed overnight. He still doesn't believe it. The tens of thousands of troops in the Wasteland Kingdom are all elites. They are all the so-called professional soldiers of military divisions. Someone seize it. Luo Ren waved his hand, and 4 guard soldiers rushed forward and detained Xiao Zhenking. Although he was an evolved human, his strength and speed were stronger than ordinary guard soldiers, but Luo Ren was standing there. He had seen Luo Ren. With his terrifying strength, he didn't dare to act rashly. With his arms tied behind his back by stainless steel handcuffs, and his head pressed against the muzzle of a gun, Xiao Zhenking did not dare to resist in order to survive. Luo Ren took a step forward and asked, "What's going on with your strength and speed?" Last time Gao's Heikente died, but there was no answer as to whether natural evolution existed. The Xiao Zhenking in front of him didn't know whether he had taken evolution crystals or evolved naturally. Of course, he had to ask carefully. I am so powerful, how can I not know it? I really know what I know. Xiao Zhenking thought in his heart and said, I ate the milky white crystals in the heads of mutated zombies. What our Wasteland Kingdom calls strengthening crystals has improved my physical fitness. It's been greatly improved. It turns out that it was also through evolution crystals. Luo Ren then asked, is there anyone in your Wasteland Kingdom who has not taken evolution crystals? That is, strengthening crystals, and became like you? Xiao Zhenking shook his head and said firmly, no, Luo Ren asked, how many evolved humans are there in the Wasteland Kingdom? Xiao Zhenking replied, it's very rare. The fact that strengthening crystals can strengthen human body quality is too important. Only people above the city lord are qualified to know. If it weren't for my eldest brother being the city lord of Sanctuary City No. 3, I wouldn't have the opportunity to take strengthening crystals. From this point of view, natural evolution is almost impossible. Kinte of Gao village should have taken the evolutionary crystal by chance. However, this wasteland kingdom does have something. With 4 cities and 4 city lords, plus this guy, at least there are 5 evolvers. Level 2 zombies are powerful, can control the zombie swarms, and have a certain amount of intelligence. Their number is currently small, so they should not be hunted down by this wasteland kingdom. However, it is possible to hunt down those quasi level 2 zombies. I wonder if there are any level 2 evolvers. Luo Ren thought to himself. Although in a large-scale war, the strength of a strong individual has limited effect, it does not mean that it is unimportant. If the Wasteland Kingdom has level 2 evolvers, then he has to beware of assassinations by the opponent. After all, the base is different from other forces. If the leaders of other forces are assassinated, then new successors will naturally appear, or they will split into several small forces, each acting independently. But there is only Luo Ren in the base. If he dies, the base will collapse immediately, and all the escorts will lose their vitality immediately. It seems that it is necessary to improve one's own strength. Luo Ren couldn't help but think of the town on the way. Isn't there a real level 2 zombie there? Its evolution crystal is a real level 2 evolution crystal, absolutely more accurate than the level 2 zombie. The super evolutionary crystal contains more evolutionary energy, making him stronger. His thoughts returned to reality. Luo Ren looked at Xiao Zhenking and said, take him to the lobby. The most urgent task is to deal with Hu Cheng's affairs first. The 4 guards pressed Xiao Zhenking to the lobby, while Luo Ren looked inside the room again. The 2 women's physical strength had long been restored, and they were curled up naked on the bed and shivering. It must be said that these 2 women not only looked she is beautiful and has a good figure. Although she is not as good as Suan Tong, she is still top notch, which makes Luo Ren couldn't help but look at her a few more times. Have you not seen enough after watching for so long? Seeing Luo Ren's appearance, Suan Tong became furious and cursed, shameless, stinky hooligan, ha, ha, upon. Hearing this, Luo Ren quickly looked away and laughed. This is not the love of beauty that everyone has. Ha. Suan Tong was even more angry, stamped her foot and said, go and love your beauty. After saying that, he left here without looking back. Luo Ren was a little embarrassed. When he turned around, the 2 women also looked over. The 3 of them looked at each other. One of them blinked at him with her autumn water eyes and moved her body so that Luo Ren could see clearly. This look was pure seduction. Although Luo Ren was hot all over and his blood was involuntarily gathering towards a certain place, it was more exciting than watching a love action movie. However, Luo Ren's self-control was extremely strong. Facing such temptation, he snorted coldly, turned his head quickly, and said to the guards behind him, you 2 ask them to put on their clothes and take them to the lobby. The others search this city lord's mansion. Yes. The guards responded. 2 guards stepped out, walked into the house with guns, and said coldly, hurry up and put on your clothes. At this time, Luo Ren had already gone to the lobby. The woman with autumn water eyes smiled charmingly at the 2 guards and hummed softly. But the 2 guards had indifferent faces, and they didn't show any emotion. Seeing this, she sat up slowly, exposing her beautiful body completely, and even made some charming movements. Looking at the guards again, they still looked indifferent, and looked at her, as if she was a fool. She said, 2 soldiers, my hands are sore, who can help me put on my clothes? Hurry up and put on your clothes. A guard shouted coldly. The autumn water-eyed woman was frightened, her face changed, and she was speechless, so she had to put on her clothes helplessly. Seeing this, the other woman didn't dare to do another set, so she just put on her clothes silently. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Jealous Suan Tang. The lobby of the City Lord's mansion. Luo Ren sat on the City Lord's throne. This seat seemed to be made of fine wood. He didn't understand this thing. Anyway, it just stood up. After sitting for a while, he stood up and kicked it. It looked very the gorgeous seat. Cursed in a low voice. What the hell? If you sit on this thing for a long time, you might get hemorrhoids. Xiao Zhenking's hands were clasped behind his back, his head lowered, his eyes peeking at Suan Tang from time to time, not knowing what he was planning in his heart. At this time, 2 guardsmen escorted the 2 coquettish women who had an affair with Xiao Zhenking to the lobby. When Suan Tang saw these 2 women, especially the charming woman with autumn eyes, her face changed instantly. He looked ugly, glared at Luo Ren, snorted coldly and looked away. Seeing this scene, Luo Ren smiled awkwardly and then asked the guardsman to take the 2 women aside. The charming woman with autumn eyes did not forget to wink and seduce Luo Ren when she saw them. The world is really big and full of wonders. In the end of the world, this woman can live like a donkey in water with her pretty face and charming personality. Luo Ren secretly shook his head and said. After a moment of silence, the escort soldiers who were on a mission to search the City Lord's palace came to the lobby. Dozens of escort soldiers had nothing useful at all. All they brought were women, and they were all women with beautiful faces. The total number of people was 58. Including the 2 women from before, there were 60 people in total. At this time, Luo Ren couldn't help but think, this Hushian is really good at playing. He doesn't do the same thing every day. Does he have to imitate the emperors in ancient times and turn his cards around? Most of these women looked haggard and depressed, with no hope in their eyes. When they came to the lobby, they knelt down consciously facing Luo Ren and remained silent. They neither begged for mercy nor screamed, waiting for Luo Ren's fate. Luo Ren saw that several of these people had bruises on their bodies. They had obviously suffered inhuman abuse. He cleared his throat and said, "You all, get up." The group of women stood up without rejecting the words, but they remained silent with their heads lowered. Luo Ren asked, "What is your relationship with Hushan?" Still silent. "Are my questions too loose?" Luo Ren came closer, saw a woman, and asked, "What is your relationship with Hushan?" The woman seemed very frightened and shrank back involuntarily, hesitating and nervous. Luo Ren frowned slightly, then looked at Suan Tang and said, "Antong, ask." Although Suan Tang was very angry because of that coquettish monster, she still sympathized with the more than 50 women now, and when she thought of her daughter Guzhi, if it weren't for Luo Ren, she would have become one of these people. Thinking about it like this, she couldn't help but looking at Luo Ren. The anger in his heart weakened a bit. Walking forward with her long and straight legs, Suan Tang was still the woman. Luo Ren asked, "Don't be afraid, we won't hurt you. What's your name?" For some reason, the extremely beautiful woman in front of her made her feel inexplicably at ease. Her nervousness relaxed a little, and she was no longer so scared. She replied, "My name is Jiziwei." Suan Tang nodded and said, "Then what is your relationship with Hushan?" Jiziwei said, "Most of us were captured by Hushan and his son Hufei. The father and son were often together. It was still hard to talk about such a shameful experience." Jiziwei paused and said it euphemistically. "Hushan and Hufei and his father often violate us together, and they often hold what they call rallies. In fact, they are father and son together with their officers." At this point, Jiziwei had choked up and couldn't speak anymore. Her tears couldn't stop falling. Other women had exactly the same experience as her. They couldn't help but choke up and shed tears when they heard this. That was Qiu who was standing aside. The charming woman's eyes couldn't help but turn red. Seeing this scene, Suan Tang had already clenched her teeth, clenched her fists, and her eyes were filled with anger. Luo Ren could only sigh. There was nothing he could do about it. In this era, women were rare items, especially beautiful women. He patted Suan Tang on the shoulder to express comfort, then looked at the group of women and said, "Are you willing to give you a chance to live?" Those women glanced at Luo Ren quietly and then realized that this man was quite handsome. He probably wouldn't hold a gathering like Hushan and Hufei did. However, if they held a gathering, they would accept it. After all, for would you like to live? It's not shabby. Therefore, they all nodded to express their willingness to accept. Well, suddenly, the charming woman with autumn eyes raised her hand and shouted. Luo Ren looked at her and said, "Do you have any questions?" There was a trace of anxiety in the eyes of the woman with autumn eyes. Just now Luo Ren said that he would give him a chance to live, but he only said it to the group of women. He stayed and wondered if he was included in the group of women. When he saw Luo Ren, after giving her reaction, she hurriedly said, "Sir, I also want to live." Luo Ren looked indifferent, and there was no change in his expression. He walked up to the woman with autumn eyes and said teasingly, "You also want to live? But why should I let you live?" Hearing this, the woman with autumn eyes became anxious instantly and said with a cry, I, "Sir, as long as you let me live, as long as you give me orders, I'm willing to do anything, and my skills are very good." But, as he spoke, he did not forget to open his little mouth wide and then stirred his tongue. His flexibility could be called a third arm. "Oh, I'll go." Luo Ren almost didn't dare to look directly at her and said to himself, "What a skilled woman." Sudden point a chill ran down his back and he felt as if he was locked by a fierce tiger. When he looked back, he saw the coldness in Suan Tong's eyes. He was so frightened that he staggered back and was suddenly stopped in the arms of the woman with autumn eyes. At this moment, the coldness in Suan Tong's eyes instantly turned into murderous intent, like a sharp arrow shooting into Luo Ren's heart. Luo Ren, who was already a level 2 evolver, felt scared at this moment. He quickly distanced himself from the woman with autumn eyes and said, okay, you're alive, you're alive." He leaned into Suan Tong's ear and whispered, "I was just joking, I didn't mean it." Humph. Suan Tong snorted coldly and walked out of the city lord's mansion looking at Suan Tong's leaving figure. Luo Ren wiped his face and thought, "What's wrong with me? I won't fall in love with her. Damn it." Outside the city lord's palace, Suan Tong looked at the grey blue sky in surprise, muttering to herself, "Brother Ren is so good, so what if there are 1 or 2 more women? Who am I qualified to express dissatisfaction? But coquettish monster is like that, I really can't accept it. She is not worthy of Brother Ren." Although she said this, she knew that it was just a talk. Who can accept the person they like being intimate with others? Rustler and footsteps sounded. Suan Tong turned around and saw Luo Ren walking out of the city lord's mansion and walking towards her. She turned away involuntarily. At this moment, a report broke the delicate atmosphere, and the two of them simultaneously looking around. "I saw Luo Hei, Luo Jaluoli and the others coming." Chapter 97 Death of Hushan. Report. Luo Hei, Luo Ji and Luo Li came trotting with 300 guards, and then lined up in front of Luo Ren. "Read report to the commander. The number of people in the city has been counted, excluding those who have gone out to find food and have not yet returned. There are 86,603 people in Hucheng at this time." Luo Hei stepped forward and said, "More than 80,000 people." Luo Ren was very surprised. This has already met his expectations and even exceeded them. He expected 50,000 or more, but he didn't expect that it would reach nearly 40,000 people. This is indeed a big surprise point. If all these people are included in the base, the population of the base will directly reach 140,000, which is much closer to the 500,000. Luo Ren said, "In this case, we will temporarily stay in Hucheng and wait for those who go out hunting to return and rest." At the same time, at noon, the sun climbed to the highest point in the sky, and the sunlight fell down to dispel the chill, making people feel warm. Squeak. The harsh brake sound woke up Hushan, who was resting with his eyes closed in the car. He lowered the window and looked out of the window, puzzled, wondering why the convoy had to brake when it was driving smoothly. He opened the door and got out of the car. No matter why, it was just right to stretch his back. He muttered to himself, "I wonder what happened to Hucheng." Suddenly the door of the front vehicle opened and 2 people got out. They were the 2 people arranged by Xiao Zhenqing. Both of them were very strong, one bold and the other with a crew cut. They were both looked honest and simple. When Hushan saw the two people get off the car, he couldn't help but ask with a smile, "Why did you two suddenly stop the car?" The bald man smiled innocently and said, "We forgot to refuel when we set out. Please give us some of the gasoline you brought with you, Lord Hu." Hushan smiled and said, "Hey, I thought something was wrong. Wait, I'll get you some gasoline right away." When Hushan turned around to get the gasoline, the bald man and the cut crew looked at each other, and then the crew cut trotted to catch up with Hushan, saying kindly, "There's no rush for gasoline. The car has been driving for so long. We are not tired in the car, but the brothers who are driving are probably very tired. It just so happens that the car has stopped, and this area looks quite safe. Why don't we rest here for a while, eat something, and then go on the road?" Hushan nodded slightly and agreed, "That's right." He held the car window and said to the Hutching officers inside, "Everyone get off the car, eat something, and rest for a while. By the way, go and call the others." The officers in the car heard this, especially the driver, and nodded quickly. After getting the gasoline and filling up the vehicle, everyone gathered together, including the bald man and the crew cut. There were a total of 37 people. Hushan ordered people to take out the food and distribute it. Several people ate with relish. Suddenly, the crew cut, and the bald man stood up. Hushan asked in confusion, "Brothers, don't you want to eat?" The bald man smiled and said, "We brothers have 3 urgent life needs. We have to go to the bathroom." Hushan said, "So that's it. Then you two should not go too far. Be careful of encountering zombies." The bald man and the crew cut smiled, walked to their car, opened the door and got in, as if looking for something. Hushan saw that they just thought they were looking for paper, so he didn't pay much attention. Caca, the car was loaded with bullets. The bald man and the crew cut suddenly looked fierce, nodded at each other, and then suddenly got out of the car with guns, pointing the guns at Hushan and others. When Hushan and others saw the two men with guns, one of them laughed and said, "Brothers, you are cautious enough to bring guns when you go to the toilet." This made everyone, except Hushan, laugh. Hushan saw that the crew cut and the bald man looked wrong and felt their murderous intent. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. The next second, bang, a bullet cut through the air and penetrated the head of a Hutching officer. The white brain matter like tofu mixed with bright red warm blood splashed, and everyone around was splashed. Hushan, who realized something was wrong, ran away, but the others were stunned. They couldn't react to what happened for a while. One of them licked the white and red liquid on his mouth, and fear instantly came to his head. He opened his mouth and screamed loudly. Ah, bang. However, the next second his head was also pierced by a bullet, and the scream stopped abruptly. Although the scream was short, it woke up the others. They stood up and touched their waists, where there were weapons for self-defense. Unfortunately, it was too late. The bald man and the crew cut would not give them a chance to resist. The index finger pressed the trigger to the bottom point. Da 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 da. Continuous gunshots rang out, and the muzzles of the two guns spit out red flames. Bullets cut through the air, leaving a trail. After a minute, the gunshots stopped, because the bullets were all used up. At the same time, all the targets, except Hushan, were killed. After changing the magazine, they looked at the Hummer with murderous intent in their eyes. "Why, who?" Cheyenne angry voice came from behind the Hummer at this time. Hushan was angry and desperate. He couldn't figure it out. He had already handed over the entire Hu city to the Wasteland Kingdom, so why did he want to kill him? The bald man and the crew cut smiled at each other, and the bald man said, "Because your Hu city is for Sanctuary City number 3, not the Wasteland Kingdom." "Didn't I write to the Wasteland Kingdom? Why was it only Sanctuary City number 3? Did you intercept my letter and not report it to the King of the Wasteland Kingdom?" Hushan asked loudly, and was shocked at the same time. Could it be that Sanctuary City number 3 wanted to embezzle my Hu city without telling the King of the Wasteland Kingdom and strengthen their own strength? Cheyenne guessed correctly. If Hu city surrendered to the Wasteland Kingdom, then the King of the Wasteland would be the one who would ultimately decide the ownership of Hu city's resources. If this was the case, Sanctuary City number 1 would definitely be the biggest beneficiary, and the remaining 3 cities would probably not get any benefits. Therefore, Sanctuary City number 3 intercepted the letter and used the name of the Wasteland Kingdom to intimidate Hushan to give up Hu City, and then they secretly embezzled the entire Hu City's resources so that all the benefits would belong to Sanctuary City number 3. However, there are risks in doing so. Once exposed, Sanctuary City number 3 will definitely bear the wrath of the King of the Wasteland Kingdom. Not only Sanctuary City number 1, which is the capital, but I'm afraid the other two Sanctuary cities will not give up. Therefore, it is necessary to ensure that the news is not leaked. Among those who know only a little about this matter are Hushan, a group of officers in Haching, and of course, Xiao Zhenking and the city lord of number 3 Sanctuary City, the bald man, the crew cut, and those who have not yet known. These people are Xiao Zhenking and his brother's confidants, trustworthy and different from Hushan and his friends, so, in order to minimize the risk, at this time, Hushan and his friends must die. After figuring out everything, Hushan was extremely angry, but what about anger? In the current situation, he can be said to be dead, so anger was gradually suppressed by despair. The pistol in his hand slowly touched his chin, thinking in his heart, I'm the lord of a city after all, and I should die in my own hands. Bang! The bullet pierced Hushan's head from bottom to top, and the body instantly collapsed to the ground, already dead. The bald man and the crew cut walked forward to check, looked at each other, and the bald man said, Hushan is dead. Go back to the city and report to the city lord to send troops to Hu City. The two quickly returned to the car, started the engine, and drove away. After the two left, many zombies staggered over. They were all attracted by the gunshots. When they got close, they smelled the scent of fresh flesh and blood, and immediately sped up and pounced on them. They bit the flesh and blood of the corpses on the ground and feasted on them. Chapter 98 Population Migration in Haching. Haching Point. The sky has darkened. There are dark clouds in the night sky today, blocking the bright starlight. The bright moon sometimes appears and sometimes disappears. Most of the residents of Hu City who had gone out to search for food had returned. Luo Ren immediately ordered Luo He and Luo Jaluali to gather all the residents of Hu City in front of the city lord's palace. Using vehicle lights will prevent you from seeing clearly due to the darkness. The roar of the engine is accompanied by the voices of Haching residents talking about this strange army they have never seen before, and the young man who seems to be the supreme commander of this army. Very curious, but also slightly scared. Luo Ren glanced over and saw that, although these residents were also thin and had white spots on their faces due to malnutrition, their overall condition was still better than that of the previous residents of Paradise City. Bringing so many people back to the base puts a lot of pressure on the base. I don't know if the newly opened city space can accommodate it, and there is also food. The more than 40,000 people who joined before are now growing and searching outside. I can barely be self-sufficient, and sometimes I still need to use points to exchange for food support. And after these more than 80,000 and nearly 90,000 people join, it is estimated that they will have to rely on points to exchange for food for a long time. Although it is troublesome, it is not difficult. With a population of more than 100,000, it may not be possible to distribute food uniformly. The workload is too large, and more manpower will definitely be needed. Wouldn't it be better to use these manpower to plant or search for food? It seems that a reform is needed. Luo Ren thought about the reform. After a long time, he rubbed his temples and said to himself, it's better to call Saudi Arabia and the others together to discuss it. After returning to the base, turning his attention to the more than 80,000 people in front of him, under their curious eyes, Luo Ren said loudly, the weather is quite cold, so I won't beat around the bush and speak directly. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Luo Ren, and I'm the commander of the base. You can call me Commander Luo or Sir, but the residents of the base basically call me Sir. The reason why my army and I are here is because Hushan repeatedly provoked me and sent troops to attack my base. As the saying goes, I will not attack others unless they attack me. Since Hushan wants to be my enemy, then I will let him go. So I'm here today. When the civilians of Hu City heard that Luo Ren and Hushan had an enmity and came to attack Hu City, there was an uproar. Most of the people began to panic. They muttered in their mouths, since Luo Ren has an enmity with Hushan, then what? Will he massacre the city? We deemed it's over. It's over. I stay in Hacheng starving every day just to survive. Am I going to die now? I'm not willing to give in. I'm not willing to give in. Seeing that more than 80,000 people were about to riot, Luo Ren hurriedly shouted, "Don't worry, I won't massacre the city. I have a grudge against Hushan, and I will never take my anger out on you." The crowd fell silent instantly and stared at Luo Ren again. They rioted and resisted circumstances. Under unarmed, facing such a well-equipped army, the final result would definitely be death. If you were lucky, you could get a few backers, but if you were not lucky, well, you can only die in vain. So after hearing Luo Ren say that he would not massacre the city or anger them, it was obviously much better to calm down and wait for him to be punished than to riot and resist. Luo Ren then clapped his hands and saw a group of guards escorting dozens of beautiful women out. Some people in the crowd saw these women's eyes widening with expressions of disbelief. "It's my wife. It's my wife, Jingjing. It's my daughter Jingjing. She's not dead." After a few seconds of silence, a series of horrified and crying voices broke out from the crowd. Nearly 100 people rushed out, and the women rushed forward one after another, and then hugged their husbands or fathers and cried bitterly, "You, honey, I thought you were dead." "I didn't die. When you went out to find food, Hushan's people suddenly kidnapped me and took me to the city lord's mansion. Damn. Hushan, they even told me that you were bitten to death by zombies while you were working." This scene made other people's noses sore, and then they looked at Luo Ren with eyes filled with awe. People who can do this will naturally not be extremely evil people. After calming down, Luo Ren continued, "Hacheng has been destroyed. I will give you a chance to live better than you are now. Are you willing to accept it?" The crowd was in an uproar and began to talk. Based on the scene just now, the crowd was silent for nearly half a minute. A brave person among them shouted, "I do." With such a leader, the words "I do" rang out one after another, and almost 80,000 people expressed their willingness. After all, if they can live and live better than they are now, who wouldn't want to? Luo Ren nodded with satisfaction and said, "Since everyone is willing, then register at the gate of the city lord's mansion from tomorrow. First come, first served. Each batch of 5,000 people will be moved to the base. You all can go back and clean up. The population of nearly 90,000 is too large. Not only are there not enough vehicles for a one-time migration, but it is also very difficult to protect. Now there are not only ordinary zombies and level 1 evolved zombies, but also level 2 evolved zombies. If you are moving with 80,000 people, when you encounter a level 2 evolved zombie, it will give you a lot of zombies. It is really like the Great African Migration, and you encountered a herd of zombies in the middle point. Therefore, after discussing with Su Andong and Luo Shan, and combining the original vehicles with the number of people that Hacheng's vehicles can carry at one time, we came up with the optimal method, divided into batches. Each batch of 5,000 there were civilians, and 1,000 guardsmen provided protection along the way. The remaining 1,000 guardsmen stayed in Hacheng until the last batch of people moved. After the people dispersed, Luo Ren called Luo Shan and said, "You bring 50 people to be responsible for registration." The next day, early morning point, the entrance to the city lord's mansion was bustling with people. When Luo Ren came out, he saw 50 tables arranged horizontally. Behind the tables were 50 guardsmen, all of whom were responsible for registration. Point in front of the table, people were squeezing and rushing to register. Some people got angry when they were squeezed out of their seats and immediately started swearing. This was considered a good thing. Some people with bad tempers just started fighting, causing a scene on both sides. Not only did he suffer a bloody head, it also affected the registration of people around him. Luo Ren shook his head. There were too many people, and it was difficult to manage. It would not be good to allow them to be so undisciplined. It had greatly affected the registration progress. He immediately called Luoshan and said, "Go and call in another 100 guards to maintain order." Luoshan quickly mobilized 100 guards to maintain order. The civilians saw the strong and tall guard soldiers and the heavy guns in their hands. The chaotic crowd gradually became orderly, and 50 long lines were lined up. The registration speed immediately increased a lot. In about 2 hours, the first group of people were registered. They boarded the vehicle and were escorted by the escort led by Regerali, heading towards the base point. Luo Ren calculated in his mind that it would take about 6 hours to go back and forth from the base to Hu City. Putting aside the rest time, only one batch could be transported in one day. It would take at least 18 days to complete the relocation of nearly 90,000 people. It seemed that it would have to be done in Hu City. I have been in the city for 18 days. Chapter 99 Wasteland Kingdom Army. Time passed by in a hurry like a river, and in the blink of an eye, it was the 5th day. Hu Cheng, training ground. The two figures suddenly collided with each other, and one of them was seen flying backwards, falling to the ground, and sliding for several meters before stopping. The man stood up, patted the dust on his body, and said, "Sir's strength and speed, they are far superior to me, and I'm no match at all." The two people were competing, Luo Ren and Luo Shan. Staying in Huchen for so many days was really boring, so they could only kill time in this way. Luo Ren analyzed, "Your current strength has reached the level of the peak level 1 evolution. You have no problem dealing with ordinary level 1 evolved zombies. Even quasi level 2 evolved zombies can still be invincible. This is already very good. Not bad. When enough evolution crystals are obtained in the future, the guards can be built into an army composed entirely of evolvers. At that time, they will not even need tanks when facing Hu Cheng's strength, and will just push forward." While the two were talking, a person suddenly ran over very quickly. Luo Ren took a look and saw that it was Suan Tong. Suan Tong's face was full of anxiety and she said, "Brother Ren, something is wrong. An army has come from outside the city. They claim to be the army of the Wasteland Kingdom and ask us to open the city gate." Wasteland Kingdom Army. Luo Ren frowned slightly and said, "Could it be that Xiao Zhengchen secretly notified the Wasteland Kingdom? It shouldn't be, he is looked at so harshly. No matter what, let's go meet this so-called Wasteland Kingdom Army first." Luo Ren looked at Luo Shan and said, "Go and bring Xiao Zhengchen with you." Yes. Luo Shan was ordered to leave, and Luo Ren said to Suan Tong, "Let's go and meet this Wasteland Kingdom Army." As soon as the words fell, the two of them immediately headed towards the city gate. Soon he arrived at the city gate. Luo Ren climbed onto the platform made of sandbags and looked outside the city. He saw an army lined up with much better equipment than Hu Cheng's army. The soldiers of this army laughed and cursed, but there was no attack on the city. The posture made him feel a little strange, as if they had been waiting for a long time. The army actually set up a big loudspeaker. One person held the loudspeaker and shouted, "Brothers in the city, we will all be a family from now on. Open the city gate quickly and let us in." This made Luo Ren feel even more strange. How could he still call them brothers when he was not familiar with these people at all? It seemed that only Xiao Zhengchen could explain it. It was said that Ko had arrived. Just when Luo Ren had the idea, Luo Shan rushed over with Xiao Zhengking. Xiao Zhengking was escorted by Luo Shan with his head lowered. When he passed by Suan Tong, he couldn't help but smell the refreshing fragrance. At this moment, his heart felt numb. However, he quickly realized it and took a sneak peek. Luo Ren in front of him suddenly said viciously in his heart, "Wait a minute, Luo Ren, your woman must be mine." Although he thought so in his heart, he didn't care about it on the surface, and Luo Ren was still close to him. Therefore, on the surface, he looked very honest and could be described as harmless to humans and animals. Luo Ren was too lazy to talk nonsense and asked directly, "The army outside the city calls itself the Wasteland Kingdom Army. Do you know, my brother has brought troops. How could you not know?" Xiao Zhengking said in his heart, "I know, they are the troops from our sanctuary city number 3. Oh. Luo Ren was surprised, and then asked, "Then why do they appear here? How can I tell you the truth?" Xiao Zhengking said, "This is the order of the king. After Hu City is obtained, our sanctuary city number 3 will temporarily send troops to manage it, and then use the existing troops of Hu City and recruit from the residents. 5,000 troops to build the 5th sanctuary city of the Wasteland Kingdom." While Xiao Zhengking was speaking, Luo Ren had been observing carefully and saw no change in his expression as he spoke, but for a moment he couldn't guess whether he was lying. However, regardless of whether it was true or not, he could not let the army outside enter the city by opening the city gate, so he ordered, "Everyone listen to the order. If anyone in the army outside the city dares to go 1 meter further, he will shoot a warning. If he doesn't listen, if you get too close, you will be killed directly. Yes, Luo Ren shouted, so his voice was so loud that even the troops outside the city heard it. The laughter and curses of the soldiers of the Wasteland Kingdom stopped abruptly. At this time, their hearts were full of doubts, and they secretly thought, didn't you say that this time we will just gather the number of people, and when we get there, we will directly attack the city? This mentality spread to the entire army, and suddenly there was an uproar, and everyone started talking noisily. Sitting in the center of the team, surrounded by an off-road vehicle, was a man whose appearance was 60% similar to Xiao Zhengqing's, frowning and equally confused. He was the city lord of Sanctuary City number 3, Xiao Zhengqing's brother, Xiao Zhenghang. Xiao Zhenghang lowered the window and called over Baldhead and Ban Kun, the two men who killed Hu Xiana. He asked them, what's going on? Both Baldhead and Ban Kun looked confused. Baldhead scratched his bald head, which was already reflecting light, and said, report to the city lord. We don't know either. Xiao Zhenghang's brows furrowed even more tightly. He got out of the car, looked at the city in front of him, and whispered in confusion, what on earth is this kid doing? Suddenly, Ban Kun seemed to have discovered something, and immediately said, Lord City Lord, there are great changes between Hu Cheng's army today and Hu Cheng's army 5 days ago. Xiao Zhenghang turned to look at him. The bald man didn't notice it for a moment, and looked at Ban Kun, waiting for his explanation. The bald man said, hey, bald man, did you see the equipment of the current city defense army? Combat uniforms, standard automatic rifles, and what did you see hanging on their combat uniforms? The bald man looked closely and said in surprise, high explosive grenades. The bald man said, what's more surprising is that their temperament is completely different from the Huchen army 5 days ago. If you don't believe it, observe carefully. The bald man observed carefully and found that it was just as the bald man said. The temperament of these city defense soldiers was far from comparable to the Huchen army 5 days ago. Combining these, the bald man roughly guessed what was going on. As the city lord, Xiao Zhenghang was obviously more meticulous, and his logical thinking was clearer than these two people. After listening to the conversation between the two, even though it was his first time in Huchen, he guessed why the city gate did not open as planned. The enemy of Huchen, and the force that has the ability to capture Huchen, is only Luo Ren from the base. It seems that Huchen has been captured by the base. I don't know whether Zhenqing was killed or captured. The guards of the base should be the guards of the base at this time. As expected, they are well equipped, and their weapons and equipment are stronger than those of the capital army. I only brought 5,000 troops this time, and I didn't bring heavy weapons. If we start a war, we will definitely not be able to break through the city, and we may even lose soldiers and generals. The gain will not outweigh the loss. I can only ask first to see if Zhenqing is dead or alive, and rescue him first, and make plans for other things later. After a rational analysis, Xiao Zhenghang walked to the front of the team. Inside the city. Luo Ren stepped on the stepping platform with sand and soil to observe the army outside the city. When he saw a man coming out of the Wasteland Kingdom army, this man looked at least 6 points similar to Xiao Zhenqing. He thought, Wasteland Kingdom, number 3 Sanctuary City, City Lord. Chapter 100. Xiao Zhenghang. Among the many eyes, Xiao Zhenghang felt a special gaze. He looked around and saw Luo Ren, who was observing him. The two looked at each other. Xiao Zhenghang was secretly shocked. This person has a very strong aura and excellent temperament. It must be a high-ranking member of the guards, maybe even Luo Ren, the top officer of that base. While looking at each other, Luo Ren smiled slightly and jumped onto the wall. His whole body was exposed to the firepower of the Wasteland Kingdom army, as if he was not afraid of the cold guns of the army outside the city. Xiao Zhenghang thought for a long time before speaking. I'm the city lord of Sanctuary City number 3 of the Wasteland Kingdom, Xiao Zhenghang. May I ask your surname? Also, has Hu City been occupied by the escort army? Oh, I actually knew it was the guards. Luo Ren was surprised and said, my name is Luo Ren. You guessed it right. Hu City has been captured by the guards. If you came here with the intention of attacking Hu City, then you can give up and go back wherever you want. It's really Luo Ren. Xiao Zhenghang was even more shocked and thought, it's definitely not possible to start a war, but Zhenking doesn't know whether to live or die, so he still can't just retreat. Xiao Zhenghang then said, yes, I do plan to attack Hu City. However, since Hu City has been captured by the guards, I will naturally not do anything stupid and antagonize the guards. After all, the guards are much stronger than Hu City. However, I have a younger brother named Xiao Zhenking. He arrived in Hucheng a few days ago. I wonder if Chief Luo Ren saw him? Luo Ren glanced at Xiao Zhenking from the corner of his eye and saw that he was very excited when he heard his brother's voice. However, he was not like those extremely arrogant and ignorant people. When his brother was approaching the city, he only looked happy and did not say stupid threats such as asking Luo Ren to let him go. Luo Ren secretly said, she is somewhat self-aware. He then waved his hand and said, bring Xiao Zhenking up. Luo Shan was seen escorting Xiao Zhenking onto the platform piled with sandbags, exposing a third of his body for Xiao Zhenghang and his soldiers to see. Xiao Zhenking's hands were only restrained, and his right wrist bone was crushed by Luo Ren. There were no injuries on his face, except that his hair and face had not been washed for several days, making he looked very sloppy. The soldiers outside the city were in an uproar when they saw the sloppy appearance of their deputy city lord. On the contrary, Xiao Zhenghang, as his biological brother, looked calm. Seeing that his brother was fine, he breathed a sigh of relief and said immediately, thank you, Chief Luo Ren, for not killing my brother. This reaction was beyond Luo Ren's expectation. Xiao Zhenghang said, no matter what my fault is, I'm here to apologize to Chief Luo Ren, and please let my brother go. As he spoke, he clasped his hands and bowed slightly towards Luo G. Luo Ren would have preferred to start a fight immediately after a disagreement and then take advantage of the situation to destroy Sanctuary City number 3, but who would have thought that Xiao Zhenghang, the lord of a city, could actually lower his attitude so low, which caught him off guard. I thought to myself, in this way, I don't have a reasonable excuse to attack Sanctuary City number 3. If I forcefully destroy them, the Wasteland Kingdom will definitely not give up. The current strength of the base may not be able to withstand the Wasteland Kingdom. Fortunately, although Xiao Zhenking had scheming intentions, he didn't have any information about the base, so he might as well let him go as a favor. After being silent for a while, Luo Ren said, the city lord is still sensible, so let him go. Hearing this, Luo Shan did not hesitate and immediately unlocked Xiao Zhenking's handcuffs and then sent him to the city gate. The city gate opened a gap just for a person to pass through, and Xiao Zhenking walked out and quickly ran to Xiao Zhenghang's side. Xiao Zhenghang raised his fist towards Luo Ren and said, thank you, Sir Luo Ren. If you have time to visit me in Sanctuary City number 3, I will definitely receive you with the highest standards. Luo Ren said, let's talk about it when we have time. Luo Ren is not a fool to be a guest on his property. Although Xiao Zhenghang looks very kind, he doesn't know if he is real or pretending. If he is really stupid and goes to someone else's property, it will be like a sheep entering a tiger's mouth. Of course, if there is a chance, Luo Ren does not recommend taking the escort to Sanctuary City number 3 as a guest, and then becoming the guest. Xiao Zhenking had been rescued, and Xiao Zhenghang didn't intend to stay for a long time, so he said to Luo Ren, in this case, I'll take my leave, withdraw. Xiao Zhenghang took his brother back to the off-road vehicle. As soon as he boarded the off-road vehicle, Xiao Zhenking's expression changed instantly, and his eyes became sinister at this moment. He said in a deep voice, brother, that damn Luo Ren crushed my wrist bones. I want him to die. No, death is too easy for him. I will cut off his hands and feet, and then possess his woman in front of them every day. Thinking of Suan Tong, Xiao Zhenking's eyes flashed with evil light. She was the most beautiful and elegant woman he had ever seen. If he could have a romantic night with her, his life would be perfect. It's a pity that she is Luo Ren's woman, but if she fell in love with Luo Ren in front of him, wouldn't it be even more beautiful? When Xiao Zhenghang saw his brother's appearance, he shook his head and said, Luo Ren's guards are well equipped and powerful in combat. You know better than me. It's just that our sanctuary city number 3 is no match at all, unless it can be said that if the leader of the country mobilizes the whole country to attack the base, there will still be a chance. However, let's not talk about whether you can persuade the country's leader. If it is a nationwide crusade against the base, the means of retaliating against Luo Ren you think of will not be realized. Xiao Zhenqing gnashed his teeth and kept muttering, damn it, damn it. Looking at the army retreating outside the city, Luo Ren retracted his gaze. He naturally didn't know what Xiao Zhenqing and Xiao Zhenghang said in the car. Looking at Su Antong, he saw that she was also looking at him, and then turned his gaze to Luo Shan and said, speed up the relocation of residents. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed, and Hucheng was already half empty, with only more than 10,000 people left. It will take another 2 days to get everything done. These days, Xiao Zhenghang has not sent troops to Hucheng again, and there are no spies left around to monitor. It seems that he doesn't want to make enemies with me. On the balcony on the second floor of the city lord's mansion, Luo Ren leaned on the railing and looked at the 50 long dragons below, muttering to himself. At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps coming up the stairs from behind. Su Antong came running and reported to Luo Ren immediately, Brother Ren, there are more people from the Wasteland Kingdom, again. Luo Ren asked hurriedly, how many people are here? Su Antong said, just 4 people. Luo Ren was puzzled, 4 people, what are they going to do? Su Antong shook her head, indicating that she didn't know. Luo Ren didn't hesitate, and walked downstairs immediately, saying, let them come to the lobby of the city lord's mansion to see me. In the lobby of the city lord's mansion, Luo Ren sat on the throne of the city lord, and 4 envoys from the Wasteland Kingdom stood below. These 4 people, 1 in front and 3 in the back. The one in front was a woman, dressed gorgeously, with a pretty face. She was very clean, and made people feel good at first sight. As for the other 3 people, they were all men, wearing ordinary combat uniforms. I think they were mainly soldiers or bodyguards escorting this woman. The woman saw that Luo Ren was only in his 20s, and he was handsome, and had a great temperament. He was very different from the people she had seen after the end of the world, and she couldn't help but secretly fall in love with him. However, she came here on behalf of the Wasteland Kingdom, and she must not do anything that would harm the interests of the kingdom because of a momentary impulse. After calming down, she took the lead and said, I'm the deputy city lord of the number 1 sanctuary city of the Wasteland Kingdom, Liu Liangxin. I'm here on the order of the king to discuss the matter of Hucheng City with Chief Luo Ren. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.